Doug Peterson. Doug, so turn it over to you.
Thanks, Mayor. I just, after speaking to a lot of people in my district, and of course, the 4th of July, which we kind of had a little bit of abbreviated with the COVID, I'd just like to dedicate this Pledge of Allegiance to our brave men and women of our military, police, firefighters, and all of the first responders. That they sacrifice so much, and I thank them for their dedication to preserve our freedoms and safety and quality of life. And if we could now say the pledge.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States
of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Doug, and I echo those sentiments for our military and first responders. Thank you.
Mayor, can I just reiterate that I kneel out of concern and respect for people of color in our community, and especially in our first responders. That was a nice dedication, Doug. Thank you.
Thank you, Telly.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Again, Doug, I'm not Doug, but Tim, I know in the future we're going to hopefully have a different way of doing public comments where people can call in, and hopefully we get that in place by August. But tonight we have many comments that have been emailed to Tim. I think it was pretty clear they had to be received by 5 p.m. and they had to clearly state that they were to be made public during this process, which is our work session. So Tim, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, there are a lot of comments, and I am going to go through them as quickly as possible, but we're going to be here for a little bit. Once again, because we're in this format, Mayor, as you mentioned, and people don't have the opportunity to comment, we're reading these into the record rather than just admitting them into the record. And so that's what I will pursue right now, and I'm just going to go one by one. First one is from Gabrielle Nacy. I would like to start by saying how amazing Councilwoman Tally Bruce has been with being a voice for the people in Cottonwood Heights that are rarely represented. Secondly, I strongly believe that police reform is required to help create a better community. Reallocating a portion of the police department's latest budget being the first change that is needed. I also feel that Chief Russo does not focus on the safety or well-being of the citizens as much as needed. Finally, the expansion of Wasatch Boulevard would be detrimental to the natural beauty and lives along the way. We have many other options such as smartphone technology or the reversible roads like we see in Taylorsville. Thank you so much for your time. I also want to mention that I am recording the ones that are longer. I'm doing those for 3 minutes. And if I don't make it through, there is the 3-minute limit, and that's what I'm doing as well with those. Next one's from Tori Horsley. Dear Cottonwood Heights City Council, thank you for reading this email. I've listened to the June 16th City Council meeting. Please note this letter is not to attack Tally, but maybe she can shed some light on her views. We all have friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers that are a minority in some fashion. One thing we all have in common is that if we break the law, we get in trouble. Tally, if you truly wanted peace in our community, you would not have had your protest rally against our police at our police headquarters. This was both out of line and in poor taste. Tally referred to the support. We support the police rally as protesters. We were not protesting anything. We were supporting our police. However, her rally was a protest against the police. Tally mentioned she was hoping the police supporters would have stayed and listened to the BLM speakers. She said they were fabulous speeches. She also mentions it's heartbreaking to play on people's emotions and manipulate with fear. We didn't stay and listen to the speeches because we were being manipulated with fear from some of her protesters. My sweet mother, who believes in equality and was present at the Martin Luther King Jr. rally back in the 60s, was sworn and yelled at by one of Tally's protesters. Also, Tally mentioned the police are to protect every member of the community, that they were publicized and that shouldn't happen. Tally, maybe you should have read the signs. They were cut out hearts thanking police. Also, Tally's comments on people flying through the intersection with Trump flags. Yes, Tally is right. Nobody should be speeding as far as displaying the Trump flag. That is exercising their First Amendment rights. This was a BLM/defunding of the police protests. Statistically, in cities across the nation, cities that are voting to defund the police have had an increase in crime from 20 to 200%. I'm in 100% support of the police. Next one is from Nancy Hardy. Could you please include my comments? Is there a brief synopsis of the 162-page Wasatch Boulevard master plan that highlights the goals and objectives? It might be helpful to the community given all the projects going on in the CH area. John Thomas's comments of the July 2nd, 2019 City Council meeting were agreed to. Have they been incorporated into the Wasatch Plan, including gateway features, 35 miles per hour speed limit, and design features, etc.? The next one is from Wendy Wixom. She says, I wish to thank the council for their efforts to meet the needs of our community and create a wonderful, safe community for our citizens. As a result, I request that my comments be read at the meeting. Thank you for letting our voices be heard and considered in your discussion. And she goes on to say, without the rule of law, there's no definition of crime. Thus, whoever can force others by any means to give into its will gets his way. That's anarchy. Without laws and people to enforce them, we have in effect no freedoms. The Cottonwood Heights Police Department risks their lives daily to reinforce the rule of law and protect our community. George Floyd's death was an atrocity. Nonetheless, the silencing of police supporters and the rise to defund the police has led to an increased tolerance for vandalism and violence. This sends a clear message to criminals that society will no longer prevent lawlessness. The result, a rise in bloodshed. Harvard economists found when officers back off proactive policing, violence increases. In Minneapolis, shootings have more than doubled, most occurring since the death of George Floyd. New York City's shooting victims is up 42% through June 21st. And the homicide rate is at a 5-year high. Baltimore has seen the highest homicide rate on its record. In Chicago, the holiday weekend alone left 79 shooting victims, 15 deaths, 11 were children. For the last 5 years, police nationally have fatally shot about 1,000 civilians annually. The vast majority were armed or otherwise dangerous. Ideally, officers would never take anyone's life in the course of their duties, but given the number of arrests they make each year, around 10 million, and the number of deadly weapon attacks on officers, an average of 27 per day, arguably these 1,000 civilian shooting deaths do not suggest that law enforcement is out of control. Since the creation of the CHPD, we have benefited from some of the valley's lowest crime rates, great response times, and some of the highest clearance rates of crimes. The cost for the service is equivalent to what the city would have paid the county for contracted services. If we are concerned about the performance of our CHPD, let's invest in additional training for techniques to control stress, de-escalation practices, and hands-on tactical training. Reducing police resources will result in poorer service to the law-abiding residents. Officers without backup will be more stressed and at the higher risk of poor judgment. Response times will increase, cash-starved agencies will train less, lower pay scales will result in less qualified recruits, a reduced police presence will claim more lives. As an elected official of the City Council, you have an obligation to maintain the policy that would keep Cottonwood Heights safe. Do not defund the CHPD. The next one is Madeleine Malini. If UDOT wants to keep commuters from Sandy, Draper, Cottonwood Heights, and other communities within the area of the valley moving, they, in conjunction with UTA, need to look at offering enhanced public transportation options for residents of these cities first, before irrevocably changing the landscape of our community through road widening and parking lots. As a former resident of Sugar House, I saw firsthand what enhanced public transit and increased bike and walking trails do to a community. I saw how the S-Line streetcar and increased walking and biking trails not only alleviated car traffic, but increased property values in my community. Now that Cottonwood Heights is my home, I've loved the access to the canyons and bike lanes that the community affords, but have seen a huge lack in public transit services. UDOT has ruled out public transit as a viable solution to access the canyons, but that would be akin to UTA saying that the S-Line streetcar wouldn't work in Sugar House. You can't discount something unless you have really tried it in your community. Knowing that the quarry site will be developed, let's focus on attention on that as a good spot for one transportation hub with enhanced shuttle services, walking and bike trails, even perhaps a resort hotel. But just focusing on one section in the quadrant to relieve congestion from traffic coming from all directions in the valley doesn't make sense either. Looking at other additional transportation hubs that have express services to the canyons will help even more. Before spending hundreds of millions of dollars to forever bulldoze down Utah's Pine Tree Line Gateway to Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons to create a high-speed arterial, let us really explore public transportation coming from many different directions. It's not only more cost-effective, but services to enhance property value instead of decreasing it. The old adage of if you build it, they will come remains true for this community. If public transit infrastructure is built, it will be used. If the road widening and parking lots, they will be used. And I want this community to remain the city between the canyons, not the parking lot between the canyons. Next one is Anna Marie McNamara. First, I want to commend Councilwoman Bruce for her continued commitment to reaching out to citizens and having productive conversations with constituents across our city. Her actions speak to her drive to hold herself and our community to a high standard. Thank you. I also want to thank Mayor Peterson for supporting County Mayor Wilson and encouraging Utahs to mask up and be proactive in our healthcare. Thank you for representing our city. Just a few weeks ago, our city hosted a rally to encourage policies that would support our local police and continuing to hold themselves to a high standard. These requests were fiscally responsible and small in nature. As we continue growing our community and being leaders in our community, I hope to see here tonight a proposal that would reform city policy to include a requirement for officers to keep their body cameras on at all times, require a periodic and randomized review of footage, increase de-escalation training, and implement a volunteer citizen review board. Across the valley, our local elected officials are creating proposals to update policies of their local police departments to protect both citizens and the integrity of local officers. Our city has yet to adopt a resolution, proposal, or policy change. Sandy City met with its protest organizers and drafted a proactive statement. Midvale released a resolution declaring racism public health crisis. These are the types of proactive solutions residents look for in our city civic leaders. I hope the Cottonwood Heights City Council makes a choice to be a leader on the issue instead of being left in the dust. The next one is Wendy Gardner. My name is Wendy Gardner. I'm a school teacher who has resided in Cottonwood Heights for 12 years. First, I would like to address the comments made by Councilman Doug Peterson on June 16th. His accusations that Councilwoman Bruce brought that into our city was offensive, ugly, divisive, and frankly unbecoming an elected official. Councilwoman Bruce may be a lone voice on the city council, but she speaks for many of us. That which was brought into our city was already here. We are here, we are angry and tired, and we deserve to be heard. We have a police department problem in Cottonwood Heights. Even if your own experience has been positive, that does not give you the right to ignore or invalidate the experiences of others. Start by listening with an open mind and a willingness to make things better for all of us. It is in your power to do so, and you must. One, our police department has a reputation for bullying residents and businesses, and you ignore it. Public trust has suffered. Our city should welcome all people. This city council should recognize that the problems facing our city affect not only residents, but also those who work, shop, recreate, and travel through Cottonwood Heights. If things don't change, people will not want to live, work, or do business here. We must do better. Now is the time. I believe that an independent review board is necessary, and the city council must act on the recommendations of that board. I believe that there should be whistleblower protections for officers and residents so that individuals can report police officers without fear of retribution. Mayor Peterson and members of the council, I implore you to make changes to our police department. They cannot adequately protect and serve our community unless changes are made to restore the public trust. Next one is Mathilda Barth. My name is Mathilda Barth, and my parents immigrated from Mexico. I've been a proud U.S. citizen since July 6, 2000. I've lived in Cottonwood Heights for 21 years, and my husband and I raised our 4 children here. We've owned a business, and I've taught at our local middle school here in Cottonwood Heights. I have a very high regard for our city. It's beautiful. We have amazing freeway access. The neighbors have pride in maintaining their property. All the people I know are kind, friendly, accepting. The few times that I have needed the police, they've been the best of the best. They were fast, professional, and respectful. I fully support our police department. I don't agree with defunding the police in any way, shape, or form and keeping it as a local police department as opposed to a county department. Our police need continued training with useful skills to help them in their profession. I'm not an expert, but I think that keeping up on tactical training, de-escalation techniques, and stress management for police would be good. Our police put their lives on the line every day, and their jobs are very difficult. I listened to the last council meeting, and I have a few questions about it. Are there any instances of police brutality with the Cottonwood Heights Police Department? Why is the Cottonwood Heights Police Department being scrutinized as if it has the problems of a big inner city? There is a council member who agrees with defunding our police. Did she bring up this concern to our city council before the national narrative that is going on now? Who are all the Cottonwood Heights citizens who are being suppressed, targeted, discriminated against, bullied, and harassed? Who are the victims and who are the aggressors? I would like to see statistics of all the people being targeted, and I'd like to know that how the city is keeping track of them and how these problems are being handled. White supremacy was mentioned as part of some remarks in the meeting, as if it's part of our city and culture. I totally disagree with that thinking. It is not part of our city or our culture, and I resent that the good people in Cottonwood Heights are being labeled quote unquote white supremacists. I am 51 years old and I've never experienced any kind of racism in the US against me or any of my family members. I don't see a problem with racism in Cottonwood Heights, and I don't believe there's a systematic problem in any other city I've ever lived in, both in California and Utah. Let's keep our city great and not import problems from the big inner cities as if they are our own. Let's work on and fix the real problems that are going on in our city. The next one is Timothy Bateman. Hi everyone. For some science, first some science, then some jokes. I followed up on a question someone had last summer about 3G, 4G, 5G cell phone signals and their effects on bees. Turns out there actually is something there. The base carrier signal used universally happens to be a resonant frequency of unlaid honeybee egg membranes. So in strong signal conditions, the eggs burst into the queen, which leads to a colony disorder. Fortunately, a simple Faraday cage over the top 2/3 of each hive blocks the signal completely, so it's an easy fix. I'm sure we all remember how to make a Faraday cage. Of course, none of the bees can then use a cell phone, but they should be minding their own beeswax anyway. Speaking of my jokes, I'm not saying Mayor Peterson is old, but he took his driver's test on a dinosaur. When I was born, JFK had just said we choose to go to the moon. When the mayor was born, someone had just said let there be light. Keep up the great work. A big thank you to all the folks that make our great city safe and operational even during these memorable times. Next one is Craig Paxson. I was very happy to read the piece in the July CH newsletter, CH Police Department Policies and Practices. I applaud the foresight of the CH City Council and the leaders of the CHPD and the policies they have in place and the training they provide. Please continue with this. It seems understandable that some recent and some ongoing serious missteps by police officers and departments in our country have caused outrage, anger, and calls for change. I express my confidence that the CHPD has been ahead of the game and is on the right track. Thank you. Cottonwood Heights is not Salt Lake City or Minneapolis or New York City. Calls to defund the police and similar protest-inspired ideas are not good approaches for our community. Some ideas, such as keeping track of demographics of people being pulled over, arrested, etc., certainly merit exploring. Thank you, City Council members, for being able to listen to those with heartfelt concerns and for being able to now to move on marvelous ways for Cottonwood Heights as the police department continues with its ongoing training, scrutinizing its policies and progress. The next is Bonnie Paxson. I'm pleased with our CH Police Department and the way they carry out their responsibilities. I've lived on Bridgeport Avenue for 35 years. I've experienced the improvements in governance and police performance and the work given to them as our area transitioned from being unincorporated part of the Salt Lake County into the city of Cottonwood Heights. I've called upon the CH Police Service several times over the years to address situation conditions in the community that I noticed were not normal or appeared dangerous. As I was taking my daily health walks, I've called upon them in the care of my own family. I found that their attitudes and actions have been excellent and very professional. I find it wise for Cottonwood Heights to have its own police department. Two of several benefits are shorter response time and officers being at the scene of a call or need, better and more effective local community-specific oversight of police actions, and guaranteeing that CH citizens' needs are being appropriately met. It's been my observation that several of the items or actions requested by the police reform group are already being practiced with excellence by the CH police force. I wish to continue to have the police department fully funded. I would prefer to be additionally taxed to cover obvious needs of personnel and institutions to handle cases of people who are emotionally unstable, mentally ill, have addiction problems, etc., not take away from fully funding the police department. Next one is from Ellen Burrell. As let's see, CHPD reform. As a citizen of Cottonwood Heights, I would like to see the reform to the Cottonwood Heights Police Department to include mandating all local officers to be equipped with body cameras, repealing what's commonly called the fleeing felon statute, banning chokeholds, creating an annual report about every agency's use of force, and requiring cops to have objective justification for making stops, implementation of a citizen review board, and a change in regulations that would allow people to sue law enforcement officers in their individual capacities over allegations of infringement of constitutional rights. The next one is, she also goes on to say, this is also Ellen Burrell, curves equal character. There are some Wasatch Boulevard current attributes, though it needs, there are some of Wasatch, residential, a gateway to Utah's prized Big and Little Cottonwood Canyons, curvy. These are some of the Wasatch Boulevard's current attributes, though it needs an express bus lane, neighborhood egress, ingress, bicycle, and pedestrian improvements. Let's go back in time, and it's understandable that SR 210 was slated at 50 miles per hour decades ago when the area was more open and rural. Traffic was light, cars were spaced farther, and could travel at 50 miles per hour through the curvy road, which is only beginning to be dotted by new tracts of homes. Today, the Cottonwood Heights section is built out and has 11 cross-sectional residential streets, no longer a rural road, and projected population growth. There is even greater need to treat its stretch as a street where children access their community parks and schools. People of all ages, including the elderly and disabled, use crosswalks and need calm traffic, not an impassable high-speed roadway. As John Thomas, UDOT's project manager, testified in front of the Cottonwood Heights City Council on June 2nd, 2019, from UDOT's senior leadership, we're going to do something we have not done before anywhere else in the state. From the executive director to the Region 2 director and department director, commitment to make Wasatch Boulevard a gateway facility. We're looking for a way to post it as 35 miles per hour. The intent is to get it there. Our Mayor Peterson likewise confirmed yesterday. I made contact with the supervisor, Carlos Braceros, the director of UDOT, and he articulated basically what John just said. Braceros said that is true. To accomplish lower speed, Thomas said, if you can imagine a boulevard, a landscape medium, things feel close, and rather than, for example, Foothill Drive, a 5-lane road asphalt, I want to go fast. All these sentiments from 2019 are opposite of the 20-foot clear space asphalted shoulders, 14 medium asphalt medium, and 12-foot wide lanes that the current alternatives include. My question is, after all the taxpayer dollars spent by UDOT and endless hours of private citizens' time, where are those elements now in the preferred alternatives? They aren't. The current imbalanced lane and five-lane alternatives are standard state roadway. Both of UDOT's 2 preferred alternatives fracture the Cottonwood Heights community by removing bicycle, pedestrian, and hikers' access to trails, stores, schools, parks completely hampered active transportation, and add danger. Adding air, light, and noise pollution for residents. Further analysis to find logical transit-based alternatives if necessary. The next one is Kim Stojak. Thomas Jefferson said, laws often, but the tyrants will, and always so when it violates the rights of the individual. The care of human life and happiness, not their destruction, is the first and only charter of good government. What is protect and serve? You're here as oath keepers to protect our rights, not to violate them. Protect and serve does not mean to shoot a teenage boy in the back and kill him. Protect and serve does not mean to run a family of color out of our city. Protect and serve does not mean to run a business owner and reporter off the road. Protect and serve does not mean to harass a city councilwoman. Protect and serve does not mean to violate one's civil rights. Protect and serve does not mean when your vehicle is broken into, you say it's not our problem, call your insurance. Protect and serve does not mean when answering a domestic dispute and taking sexual advantage of a female citizen while on duty. Time has come to stand up and take back our community and follow the motto on the back of your vehicles to solve the problem. It's time for Cottonwood Heights government to stand up and solve the problem and take action. This has been going on in our community for over 10 years. We as citizens of Cottonwood Heights are done with the harassment, intimidation, and abuse of power. This behavior ends now. Because you're to take an oath to serve and protect, you should adhere to a higher standard of obeying the law, not breaking it. You should be held liable and accountable if you choose otherwise. We are so gripped by the police brutality in our country, and the first step in solving the problem would be to abolish qualified immunity. A citizens review board should be put into place to investigate officer-involved critical incidents. When an officer is involved in such an incident, there should be a mandatory drug testing on the officers involved. Body cam should be worn at all times while on duty. If you don't have anything to hide, then it shouldn't be a problem. If officer fails to do so, they should be reprimanded. Last but not least, our tax-paying dollars should not be paying for military-style vehicles and military-style assault weapons. This is Cottonwood Heights, not Baghdad. It's time for change in our city, and we, as our tax-paying citizens, demand our city government to step up and take responsibility to make sure these things are done. The next one is Aaron and Tiffany James. Thank you, Mayor and City Council members, for your consideration of the following comment. A close family friend and longstanding community leader said to us about the death of our son, Zane James, "What you allow, you condone." It is the statement that made us personally approach Mayor Peterson and City Manager Tingy in 2018, shortly after our son's death, which resulted from being shot twice in the back by an off-duty police officer with the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. Despite our grief and sometimes anger at the city's silence on what had happened, we requested this meeting to try to open a transparent dialogue with our city leaders about completing a city-led independent evaluation into their own CHPD police or policies and practices. We did this because we believe that a better understanding by city leaders of what our son and family experienced could lead to positive change that would prevent any other family in our community from experiencing the same devastation. We still believe this type of city-led evaluation of questions surrounding our experience can be done today. In fact, we believe it is more relevant than ever given the community outcry as more and more events of similar police brutality have become public. We also believe it is particularly necessary for our city leaders to ask the following hard questions about our experience, given the recently published July 2020 Cottonwood Heights newsletter, which provides a detailed description of police policies and practices that give adequate adherence to the CHPD officers should have prevented our son's death. With that said, we request the mayor and city council contemplate and respond with reform recommendations to address, one, what other alternative actions the officer could have taken based on de-escalation and non-lethal methods to prevent the use of deadly force with no verbal warning, as an injured suspect was running away at a distance of less than 30 feet from the officer on a neighborhood street. Two, the impact on the ability to complete this type of examination without the city having a mandatory requirement for police officers to wear body and use car cameras. Three, the reasons why city leaders and the police chief would publicly support an officer who has qualified immunity to refuse to provide a statement about his decisions to shoot a suspect rather than use other available non-lethal methods to arrest him. Four, the reasons why city leaders and the police chief would award this officer and other officers involved in the incident a commendation for his service in a public ceremony before the independent investigation of the incident and the district attorney's criminal ruling was completed. Five, the possible causes and institutional culture behind other aggressive and punitive behaviors we observed and reported in multiple interactions with CHPD officers and our son over an 18-month period prior to his death. Six, the reasons why CHPD officers and the police chief would personally make public statements and social media posts during this 18-month period before and then after Zane's death, portraying him falsely as a known violent criminal. Seven, the reasons why the other details described above about his death were not disclosed in any public statements or even the independent investigation report results and the DA's criminal findings report. There's a little bit more. I've hit the 3-minute mark. I'm going to be forwarding all of these to the city council members as well. The next one is from Lori Carter. I have had 2 experiences with CHPD. Both left me feeling distrustful of our local police force. The first happened about 3 years ago when a police officer came to my home. He asked to search our backyard for a reported suspicious black man in the area. At the time, I was home alone and felt very uncomfortable with someone looking through my property. But at the same time, I was raised to respect and trust our police officers. I had no idea if this person was actually a part of CHPD, so I asked for his ID. His response was to laugh at me and say, "The uniform's not enough." Geez. He reluctantly showed me his badge after I refused access to my yard unless I knew who he was. I quickly called my husband while this person looked around our property and had him Google the officer to validate his position. He was part of CHPD. I immediately regretted giving him permission to come into our yard because I felt very uneasy and not safe at all. If CHPD treats residents like I was treated when they needed my help, I can't imagine how I would be treated if I were in a position where I needed their help. The second happened at Butler Middle School. One of the officers did a presentation in the 7th grade health class about drugs and addiction. addiction. I asked the officer for a copy of the curriculum so I would be informed on what was being taught. And so this important conversation can continue at home. The response was very defensive. Why would you need a copy of that? Followed by him laughing. When I explained my reasoning, he said he would send me a copy. It never happened. Both encounters made me feel disrespected and belittled. I don't know if these male officers need a training course on respecting women or people in general, but some changes need to be made. There's no reason for CHPD to have an office in a middle school. There is no reason for them to constantly speed down 2300 or through my neighborhood on Nut Tree. Time to put some egos in check. The next one is Michael Hansen. Dear Mayor, Council, and staff, thank you for allowing citizens to share our thoughts in this section of the business session. I do believe that our elected officials need to have citizens' input that can be part of public record as often as possible. I will simply request that you listen and take to heart our words. This medium is not by any ways convenient for any of us. Honestly, I wish I could be standing in front of all of you and looking you in the eyes. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been pondering over our distressing national events and temperament of people and groups that are challenging our nation. To further the depth of polarization, we all are so quick to sit and point fingers, blaming whatever we can to support our personal agendas. It's disheartening and frankly painful to watch and listen to. As you know, on June 15th, a group led out of my city's district organized a rally that was claimed to be peaceful, inspirational, and needed for Cottonwood Heights. I made it a point to wear my face covering and attend this rally for the sole reason to be part of a historical event within my city. Mayor and Council, have you ever heard the phrase, "not in my backyard"? I'm sure you have on multiple times in these very chambers. I have been approached by many friends and neighbors who asked the question concerning this rally. Why? Why here in Cottonwood Heights? Why in my backyard? As we talk, the dialogue seems to be quite repetitive about how we strive to be good neighbors, to help others, help other regardless of affinity, race, political party, education. So I'd like to pose the question to you, why? Why did this peaceful rally fill our City Hall's plaza with profanity written on signs to be advertised as a family-friendly event? Why were the inspirational speakers collected from many people that do not even reside within our city limits? Why weren't participants privileged to take it upon themselves to destroy, deface, and steal property that was not theirs? Why were participants of this rally racing around in very loud vehicles screaming profanities? Why was there so much effort to bring the press to this event? Why is it that when we are constantly bombarded with political and social unrest, this type of event had to be placed at our City Hall in a city that is not perfect? However, it contains a majority of citizens who want to help, understand, and change in a civil, respectful way. These are just some of the few questions I've heard from residents of our city. That evening, I witnessed an interesting contrast on the same relatively small space, a very large group of support and respect for our citizens comprised from my neighbors and fellow citizens, in contrast to the organized attendees displaying vulgar signs, wave profanity, not to mention the largely negative message that was delivered, offering no real hope for people. The organizers of this event should pat themselves on the back because it did make national news. Interestingly enough, the national news highlighted event with support and non-support gathered at the same place without any major incident. This being an excellent example of what other outstanding citizens live in Cottonwood Heights. In relation to the inspirational speakers, with the exception of Carl Moore, there was nothing family friendly about any of the messages shared. Once again, I hit the 3-minute mark. I will send the remainder of this to you. Next is from Shelley Hansen. Dear Mayor Peterson and Council, I support the Cottonwood Heights Police Department and Chief Robbie Russo. I do this because they have supported my family, friends, and neighbors for years. We had a next door neighbor who struggled with strong addiction to alcohol. One morning was exceptionally bad. Officers Ken Etchell and Scott Ricks came to her home to help. They were professional but sensitive to the issue. They took very good care of her. One time when we were out of town, we asked for a daily drive-by, a service anyone in the city can access and one that I appreciate. During this trip, I received a phone call from Officer Jeff Potter to let me know that he noticed a window open and asked if I'd like it closed. I trusted him enough to give him the garage code so he could go in and close the window. When our youngest was at Brighton, she was prescribed a new medication for anxiety. She took more than she should have one day, and I had to be called out of work to come get her. She was so groggy and couldn't stand on her own. Officer Chad Soph, an embedded officer at the time, came to the office and picked up our daughter and helped me put her in the car. Years after he left, CHPD was another for another job, we saw each other and he asked about our daughter. That was amazingly thoughtful. Most recently, a friend of ours was struggling with her mental health in a way that was frightening her children. We spent hours with her trying to talk her into getting help that night. By 1 a.m., with the help of Chief Russo, we were able to get her to the police department so that Officer Mike Fullwood could get her information and escort her to the University Hospital where she could get the help she needed. Officer Fullwood treated her like a friend he was concerned about. I have other stories that remind us of the amazing police department we have in the city under the direction of a strong police chief. And although I respect that this might not be everyone's opinion of the Cottonwood Heights Police Department, I believe this is the sentiment of the majority of our Cottonwood Heights citizens. Next one is Holly Josephson. Can you please fund a sidewalk for Danish Road to connect Danish Cove to English Way? Otherwise, can you provide a temporary summer bump as cars drive very fast when I do yard work or go to the mailbox and it is dangerous, and also for the hundreds of daily walkers. Also, my council member does not have a city voicemail. Is there a reason for this? The next one is from Gay Lynn Binion. Thank you for considering many crucial topics today. I wish to address the LCC environmental impact study and also police policy and training. Thanks to your important recordings of city council meetings, we can all view last year's meeting and hear John Thomas of UDOT ensure that our city, that after many meetings and discussions, the speed limit along SR 210 between Fort Union Boulevard and Little Cottonwood Canyon would be 35 miles per hour. He discussed the goal of making this road a gateway facility, a roadway with unique enhancements. As I listened to feedback from citizens, 35 miles per hour for this section of Wasatch Boulevard is a high priority. It will lead to more cars taking Highland Drive or the freeway, which are great options. It will allow safety for bikers, pedestrians in the community. Many people ask that before we invest millions of tax dollars in widening roads, we use traffic management to address the traffic congestion we experience mainly on snowy weekends. All comments I've heard from citizens strongly request the 35 miles per hour speed limit and incentivizing use of buses in our effort for safety and air quality. I'm glad the council is also addressing the importance of police policy and training tonight. Thank you for making clear in the CH newsletter that our city and police department do not accept hatred, bigotry, or violence. Thank you for providing our officers training in de-escalation and implicit bias. I applaud city council members who bravely ask difficult questions that lead to efforts to improve an already strong and needed police force. I approve of suggestions for a state-level task force to investigate officers' use of force, making records of proven misconduct by officers more transparent, and refunding the social safety net. We are fortunate to live in a safe and beautiful city. Let's move forward listening to the vast majority of our citizens who demand a low speed limit for Wasatch Boulevard and who appreciate our police force, and no improvement is always positive. The next one is from Jim Hutchins. This regarding the, let me see, engineer a street that is neighborly and provides a feeling of arrival to one of the most spectacular canyons in the world, 35 miles per hour. He's referring to Wasatch Boulevard preferred alternatives. Also regarding the Lakai proposed development, while not opposed per se to a gondola within Little Cottonwood Canyon, Cottonwood Heights City would do well to consider the lost tax revenues of having visitors buzz past Cottonwood Heights to park their car in the 1,500 parking stalls associated with this project and spending their money within Sandy city limits, Snowbird or Alta. The next one is from Bob Olson. As a resident of Cottonwood Heights since 1966, I've always loved living here. My 5 children all went from the 1st grade through 12, all graduating from Brighton High School. I have for many years served on the emergency preparedness group here. This has always been a very peaceful community. The introduction of those who would cause contention and seek to turn one group against another should not be welcome. At the recent BLM demonstration, it was apparent that the aim was to do just that. There are for sure some well-intended among the group that have real intent to put forth a message. That should be welcome. However, there is an element associated with the group whose intention is not to improve, but rather to cause problems. After the demonstration, the true nature of that element on display. Signs were stolen, signs were defaced, and the banner was stolen. While it is possible there is racism anywhere, this kind of behavior and calling entire groups racist is certainly not on the interest of progress for anyone. Next one is Michael Albrecht. As you know from past correspondence in our virtual meeting, I had to deal with racial discrimination and misconduct coming out of the community from unelected officials in the police department for about a decade. You saw on June 15th in the small town that racist and right-wing agitators wanted to silence and intimidate everyone who speaks up against them. Everything goes, no limits, even the children of those who want to make Cottonwood Heights a better place for all are fair game, as I had to experience myself, and as it contributed to several suicide attempts of one of my sons of color. The nationwide protests that we see these days are directed against those who act like that, those who intimidate like that, and those whose corrupt personal interests cause devastation, personal injuries, and sometimes death. To date, the city has not cared. To date, we were alone. To date, city officials excused all misconduct by anyone in leadership position in Cottonwood Heights because those officials were close to them. Things only really started changing when Tally Bruce appeared on the local scene. You have to be a very brave woman to speak up against the good old buddy network. She did that, and now she is facing a storm of protests by those whose entitlements start to shake. All of them are white. On June 15th, we saw an example of what it takes to dare to speak up in our little Cottonwood Heights during a peaceful protest for accountability, review, and more control by residents and policing affairs. Right-wing, huge flag-raising, MAGA truck-driving agitators were clearly trying to intimidate and silence the crowd, driving with high speed and great noise around the corner of 2300 East and Bengal Boulevard. That alone would be nothing new. What else is new? What was special and different about this is the fact that it happened right in front of the office of the chief of police in his department. It is unthinkable that the behavior was not condoned by the police department. As we learned, it became over the years normal that police are driven out of town or people's lives are being destroyed for no other reasons but requesting accountability or change or due to personal preferences in individual officers. The establishment is entitled and does not want to change for as long as it can attack, hurt, and destroy those who speak up in order to silence them. The city has to decide if it is a city for the establishment or all residents. We need a change in Cottonwood Heights. Under the establishment, Brighton High School became the local drug hub, and no one cared enough to change that. The local schools became a haven for drug dealers. A teacher from Butler Middle School has been reported to everyone in power as using drugs in the school building for decades, and no one did anything. Neither the school district nor the police department. The teacher was white. Children of color, her former students, are being chased through the neighborhoods instead based on allegations. The death of children and destroyed lives was never enough for anyone in the establishment. All that happens right across the street of the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. Shall we continue to be silent as the community suffers? As children in our community rather die than continue living among us? Do we have to look the other way and not talk about issues and where they come from? Who's benefiting from those devastated by inaction of some? There's more. I'll pass that on. I've hit the 3-minute mark. Next one is David Williams. Thank you for enduring such a large volume of citizen input. Your service and seat time are appreciated. I also appreciate and support our Cottonwood Heights Police Department officers for their work in keeping order in our city and neighborhoods and for the needed help they frequently bring to individuals and families. Valuing that service to us, I do not want to see their funding cut or reduced, nor do I believe that anyone who has seriously thought mental energy about the consequences of not having police protection in our city wants to see funding cut or reduced. And that would include outsourcing the safety of our city to another remote government agency. That a representative on the city council at the June 16th meeting referred to me and others holding this opinion as white supremacist only served to support my opinion, since such name calling is merely a scream for not having a well thought out or factually based counter opinion. Sticks and stones. Further, I believe all lives equally and without regard to race, creed, color, gender, anything are sacred before God, and I oppose any inequality in law enforcement or laws in general based on any such differences. While acknowledging the challenges some of my fellow citizens may sometimes have with police, I appreciate how Cottonwood Heights Police Department officers are trained in de-escalation procedures and the tremendous job that they do at that. And while recognizing and appreciating the fine work that the Cottonwood Heights Police do, I still support their efforts at continual evaluation and improvement of enforcement process and police training. That said, I believe positive law enforcement improvements can be best achieved in an environment where police are not vilified because of the bad acts of a few offensive officers. The most recent egregious examples, not even from our state. Let's keep Cottonwood Heights safe for all citizens regardless of race by keeping our police well-funded and trained. The next one is from Robert Taylor. I understand that the traditional Butlerville Days festivities have been canceled for 2020. I'm not complaining about that, nor do I disagree with the decision that was made. I'm a resident of Cottonwood Heights, and as an aside, I'm employed by Summit County as their chief building official. I've been in public service for 39 years, and I'm still a full-time employee of Summit County. Let me simply say that I have an insight to public service that many others perhaps do not. I'm a product of the state of Utah, and I'm proud of my heritage. My forefathers immigrated to this state, and their names are indelibly stamped on places like Pleasant View, Taylor, New Harmony, Ogden, Salt Lake City, and Brigham City, to name a few. I only mention this to reacquaint you to the pride in the shared ancestry that I hope we share and celebrate this time of year with our local Butlerville Days celebration. Butlerville Days needs to be more than a community collective decision by professionals, meaning doctors, lawyers, and insurance chiefs. I agree that the big crowd festivities need to be minimized or canceled. I do not disagree with your decision to cancel them. On the other hand, our voice of celebration, our tribute to the sacrifice of our forefathers, and our voice of appreciation for the freedoms which we enjoy and for which they sacrificed their lives should not be silenced. We still need to have a fireworks display, even if that means that we have to have an ambush display that is not announced to the public and to which the public is not invited. Let's just wait until dark and start with a big bang followed by 5 minutes of fireworks instead of 20, followed by a huge grand finale. Most citizens of Cottonwood Heights will see it and will appreciate it. There will not be time for the crowds to collect, especially if the roads are sufficiently blocked and redirected at the right time. Pleasant View, Utah did just this thing this year, and it was well received by its citizens. It took courage for them to pull off this kind of stunt. I encourage Cottonwood Heights to have the courage to stand up. I encourage Cottonwood Heights to have the courage to up them in this manner. As a descendant of Pleasant Green Taylor, I encourage you to beat him and the city that bears his name. In this fireworks tribute, we don't need a flash mob, and that is not what I'm encouraging. We do need to have a voice of tribute and celebration, and I believe fireworks will say what we want to say most eloquently. The next one is from Jerry Engel. I am writing this letter in response to an email from David Williams, a resident of our city. The subject was the defunding of our CH Police Department. Ever since I heard this term following the recent SLC riot, I've wondered what it means to defund our police department. Sounds a little like siphoning the gas out of your car because the battery is dead. Defunding sounds like someone's idea of solving a problem in a department by eliminating the resources needed for that department to function. Be that as it may, I support our CHPD in its entirety. I've had only good experiences with the officers who work there. I've had issues with Brighton High School, illegal parking in front of my house, and theft of property from my yard. Their response has always been prompt, efficient, and courteous. I feel that we are all well served and protected by our CH Police Department. I desire that this letter be read at the meeting. Okay. The next one is Patsy Young. I'm a resident of Cottonwood Heights and have seen and been since its inception. I just listened to a portion of the last council meeting in which Tally expressed her concern for the morale of our Cottonwood Heights police. I am amazed at the hypocrisy considering she was behind the rally held last month to defund them, as well as the continuing undermining of our police ever since she was elected. She also stated her dismay that our police was politicized and the building was used to advertise for our police force. If she were not so against those officers who protect us and by their presence giving us security and peace, she would see those signs and hearts were there to support these hardworking, caring, and amazing individuals at a time when their morale is extremely compromised and many of us are hurting for them. I was there. Those signs were in no way advertising. That would be ludicrous. They were supporting and incidentally, that what was the defund the police rally if not politicizing? And to set the record straight, there was only one point in the pro-police rally behind the rally to defund them where a line of 5 to 6 police cars came by with their lights flashing and sounded their sirens briefly. I saw that as a thank you to their supporters, not in any way a harassment of the anti-police rally. We as citizens have every right to support our police with our presence and our signs, our cheering and our waving. I highly doubt that any of the peaceful people at the pro-police rally did anything like what I experienced from the other group. I'm old and short. I guess that made me a good target. A young man came up behind me, probably because of the sign I was holding, and yelled an obscenity too nasty to repeat. I know it was directed at me because he put his face down so close to me that I felt his breath on the top of my head as he yelled. He was gone before I could respond, but I am sorry that he was not willing to have a reasonable discussion rather than just find satisfaction in harassment. I would like to respond to something else Tally brought up. Reducing police presence will in no way help the poor or underprivileged. They need it more than ever. That narrative is a lie to promote an anarchist agenda. As a taxpayer, I'm pleased with the way our council has appropriated funding for our police, and I'm begging the council to not in any way consider any measure of defunding them. I pray that reason will prevail, and our country as well as our city will in no way jeopardize the safety and security of the citizens because of the unreasonable, uneducated, or mean-spirited anti-police voices. Thank you for your time and for your attention. Next one is Spencer Williams. As a citizen of Cottonwood Heights, I want all to know that I support the local police and believe any effort to defund or otherwise inhibit the police department from doing its job would be an incredible disservice to citizens of Cottonwood Heights, regardless of skin color. Just last month, I reached out to CHPD regarding a suspicious person on my property. We need to continue to support them so they can continue to support our community in making a safe place for all of us, especially our children. The next one is Arlen Randall. I am now and have been for nearly 50 years a resident of Cottonwood Heights in District 1. I do not agree with any defunding of police. If retraining or more education is needed to solve issues, it seems to me increased funding is what is necessary. With crime on the rise, police presence is a deterrent. It is comforting to me to see the police cars being driven past my home, patrolling out on the streets and seeing officers helping people. I've had a few different issues that required police assistance and advice. I've been in safety classes taught by officers. I have watched as officers help at schools. I have great respect for the heroes who put their lives on the line for us every day. I'm grateful for each one of them for having the strength, courage, and desire to help us. When I had been married for about a year and a half, my husband and I were driving back from a store with our infant daughter. A car pulled up by us, and the people inside were being belligerent. They followed us home and drove into our garage next to our car. My husband told me quickly to go into the house with our baby and call police. I think I recall there was no 911 at the time. I called police, there was no answer. I called again, no answer. The people were very threatened, my husband in the garage, and I was afraid they would seriously injure him or kill him. Thankfully, they settled down and left. We had no idea who they were or why they did what they did. I later learned that at the time we called the police, it was a shift change and there wasn't anyone at the phone desk. That was a terrifying experience to have no access to help in our time of great need. I believe that we all need to be treated fairly and that black and white and red and yellow and brown are adjectives that need to be erased from our thoughts and words when referring to humans. Colors of skin or any other physical description should not enter in for any discrimination. Does it matter if we are black or white or brown or if we commit a crime? Does it matter if we are LDS or Protestant or Catholic if we commit a crime? Does it matter if we are short or fat or tall or skinny if we commit a crime? I don't understand why these words need to be included in public descriptions other than to fuel racism, elitism, discrimination, and hate. Please do not defund any police programs, officers, or equipment. They will be less educated, their hands will be tied, and will be less safe. Response times will be longer, and our great community will not be such a wonderful place to live. That's Kathleen Randall, excuse me. Next one is Jay Brown. I'm a resident of Cottonwood Heights, where I've lived for 40 years. This is where my wife and I raised our 5 children. What follows is the text of an email that I sent to all the members of my family on June 14th, 2020. Here it is. I'm forwarding the email below. It's about a counter rally against a protest to defund our police right here in Cottonwood Heights. It's pretty hard for me to even believe that this kind of movement to defund the police has come home to roost right here in the hometown where you guys grew up. Mom and I are planning to make some signs in support of law and order and in support of the police and attend the counter rally. We would love your support and would be grateful if you would come and support us in this important time. Never before in my life have I seen a time where the threat to peace and order in our society was this great. The very fabric of our great country seems to be being needlessly torn asunder. I believe that a small minority is counting on the rest of us to cower and do nothing while they attempt to take away our freedom and rights as they attempt to dramatically move our society towards socialism. We raised you guys to respect the authority of properly elected officials to follow and enforce the laws that keep us safe. Change can and should occur in the legal, duly chosen way through elections, not insurrection. So far, it seems that only the voices of the radicals are being heard. We all need to stand up and let our voices be heard as well. We Americans, and especially Utahns, are welcoming, loving people. We open our hearts, homes, and lives to all others who share our respect for the rights of all. We do that willingly as long as they are willing to obey our laws and respect the boundaries that we the people have set. The police and military are the system we the people have put in place to allow and ensure our freedoms. There is not room for any lawless group who would disrupt and attempt to destroy our best in the world system. I love you guys so much. I don't want some outside organization whose stated goal on their website, the disruption of the nuclear family, to be able to destroy ours. God set up the system, and I think it is worth protecting. Please let me know your thoughts, Dad. Then he goes on to say, all of my surviving children who live in Utah came with their families to support the police department. In total, there were 14 just from my family, involved with hundreds of others in the peaceful show of support for our fine police department. All of the people at that rally for support that I spoke to were from the Cottonwood Heights. My grandson went back to the later defund rally and spoke to several people. None of those were from Cottonwood Heights. We do not support efforts to defund our police department. I would request that Mayor Peterson and the City Council, particularly my elected council member Douglas Peterson from District 1, where I live, to oppose efforts to defund the police. I further ask them to do all they can to help support the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. We want the police to continue to provide the great services that they have been doing. None of us are perfect, that includes our police, but they try hard and succeed in keeping us safe. We enjoy a wonderful sense of security each and every day, and I thank them for their service and from the bottom of my heart. The next one is from Michael Barth. I'm very concerned about the lawlessness that is running rampant through the country. I'm grateful that our local police department is respectful and professional in their manner of enforcing the law. I'm grateful that we don't have to live in fear like many other communities. I attribute that fact 100% to our great police department and our city leaders who are not preventing them from doing their jobs. I'm appalled by the push to defund the police, especially since the worst rioting, looting, arson, and assaults on innocent bystanders are in the cities that are already underfund their police departments. Please do not heed the call to defund the police. The people behind it are liars, plain and simple. They don't care about any perceived injustice. They are hiding a dangerous agenda. Here's an excerpt about crime statistics from an article written by Larry Elder. Quote, there is no epidemic of racist cops killing black suspects. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, police killings of black declined almost 80% from the late 60s through the 2010s, while police killings of whites have flatlined. Meanwhile, in 2017, according to the CDC's National Vital Statistics reports, non-Hispanic blacks were 8 times more likely to be a victim of a homicide. Homicide death rate 23.2 per 100,000. Than non-Hispanic whites, homicide death rate 2.9 per 100,000. The number one cause of preventable death for young white men is accidents, such as car accidents and drownings. The number one reason for death, preventable or otherwise, for young black men is homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black man. In 2018, there were approximately 7,400 black homicide victims, more than half of the nation's total number of homicides, while the black population is 13% of the U.S. total. Of that number, the police killed a little more than 200 blacks, and nearly all of them had a weapon or violently resisted arrest. In recent years, the police have averaged killing about 1,000 Americans per year. Of that number, half are white and 1/4 are black, and the race of remaining suspects of another race are unknown. Of the approximately 1,000 killed by cops, less than 4% involve a white officer and an unarmed black man. Recent studies not only find no systematic abuse of black suspects by the cops, but if anything, cops are more hesitant, more reluctant to use deadly force against a black suspect than against a white suspect. The Manhattan Institute's Heather McDonald writes, regarding threats to blacks from the police, a police officer is 18.5 times more likely to be killed by a black male than an unarmed black male is to be killed by a police officer. Last year, according to the Washington Post, the police killed 9 unarmed blacks. They killed 19 unarmed whites. In recent years, about 50 cops have been shot and killed annually in the line of duty. So more cops are killed each year than are unarmed black suspects. Next one is Kevin Gunnell. I participated in the recent support rally for our Cottonwood Heights Police Department. I was proud to watch as fellow citizens came together to voice their support for a common cause, to unite in showing support for our local police presence. I recognize and embrace the right of those with opposing viewpoints to be able to make their voices heard, and I'm glad the events of that date occurred without incident. Like others who were there, I believe a local police force is an important and critical part of maintaining a peaceful atmosphere for all people in our city. I also believe such a force should be carefully maintained with high expectations of conduct and professionalism. We should expect nothing less than excellence. However, I was stunned to listen to the June 16th Cottonwood Heights City Council meeting and hear Representative Tally Bruce mention she heard my white supremacy. If that's what she heard from my raising my voice to support my cause, then she heard but clearly didn't listen. To deliberately use such inflammatory language and grossly misrepresenting those with opposing viewpoints, including some of her constituents, in a repulsive abuse is a repulsive abuse of her position. In the future, I hope she will not misrepresent me with a manipulative narrative. The next one is Ken Olson. I hope one of the many things we love about Cottonwood Heights is our local police department. We support them 100%, and we would frankly beg you and Doug, she's referencing Mayor Peterson, excuse me, to resist any attempt to divert or reduce their funding without a slow, thoughtful, transparent, and community inclusive process. I have no doubt that nationwide there are situations where people do not receive equal treatment from some police based on the color of their skin, and I will concede I cannot say that has never happened in our community. I'm horrified by the thought of any discrimination based on skin color, and I agree we need to make some changes and do much better as a society. But I also believe that the vast majority of police are good men and women and do not discriminate, and they are trying their very best to do a challenging, stressful, and dangerous job. I have no doubt my feelings expressed above represent the majority of Cottonwood Heights voters and residents. We do not have to choose sides with this issue. As a society, let's work together to figure out how to stop the horrible discrimination we have been reading about and fund underlying and underfunded social services that will help communities. We must also always stay focused on the basic concept of public safety. Thank you again for your service. The next one is Joyce Sibbett. As a member of the Cottonwood Heights community, I'd like to comment in support of the strong effort the Councilwoman Tally Bruce has made to change some policies. Transparency and accountability are ethics that should be upheld in all agencies. I would like to call for transparency that would promote third-party review of policing systems, including a database and federal oversight. These standards of transparency would help us maintain integrity to make sure that our police force could only use deadly force as a last resort. We could be sure that no chokeholds would be allowed. Body cameras should always be on, and if they are not on, the police department should mandate the independent review from a source outside of the police department. When hiring officers, resumes should be publicly posted, and any report of malfeasance should be made public. I also hope that we could promote an effort to hire more persons of color and females. I am grateful for citizens who become trained to be police officers. They are desperately needed in our society. I write this email to applaud those officers who adhere to high standards and promote public safety. This email is not intended to undermine these public servants in any way. Nevertheless, there are individuals on the police force who create problems for citizens who have not been proven guilty of any crimes. I would hope to make such officers accountable for inappropriate actions. Please consider my comments for policy changes in the Cottonwood Heights Police Force. The next one is Rochelle Kaplan. As a civic-minded citizen, I believe that a patriotic citizen can support police reform and Black Lives Matter. This is not an either-or proposition. Police reform suggested by BLM, but also by many other groups, included those in law enforcement, including the following reasonable reforms: better data collection, a ban on chokeholds and limiting the use of force, ongoing training and de-escalation techniques, and in implicit bias, the increased use of funding for services like social workers, domestic abuse counselors, drug abuse experts, so that police can concentrate on reducing crime, ending the arresting of people, especially of color, for minor offenses like a broken taillight, demilitarization of the police, use of body cams, community oversight, and representation, independent investigations of police misconduct, fair police union, contracts that don't grant unprofessional policemen, women broad immunity, and an end of for-profit policing, including excessive bail and additional penalties for being late with fines. I suggest looking at campaignzero.org as a place to start, even if the mayor and city council members don't agree with all the reforms. Surely we can find common ground on some of them. I'm glad that the Cottonwood Heights Police Department already has undertaken some of these reforms, and that Mayor Peterson sounds committed to further improvements and to listening to and learning from all viewpoints. I was at the rally at CH City Hall. Both groups were polite, respectful, and peaceful. There were a few signs that used vulgarity, but these were isolated. There was no defacing of any signs or theft that I am aware of one person, as one person claims, and I was there the entire time. I found the speakers of BLM to be eloquent on the history of policing in the American South, which started as a way to bring back fugitive slaves and moved on to enforce segregation, on American history in general regarding unfair treatment of African Americans, and on the support of good law enforcement officers, including in CH, while also asking for sensible reforms. The speakers included some living in Cottonwood Heights and some from other nearby communities. Miss D. McIntosh, a Cottonwood Heights citizen whom I don't know, wrote an inflammatory email that I received today from a neighbor. Miss McIntosh wrote that BLM has a message of violence erasing our history, which many of them know nothing about, eradicating law and order and our Constitution, and changing us into a socialistic world order. Miss McIntosh encouraged those she sent the email to forward it to neighbors and to write to the city council regarding the rallies. These letters will be read at the July 7th council meeting. This is one reason I'm writing, and why my husband and I plan to attend on July 7th. There are many books and articles on the history of our nation's unjust treatment of African Americans. Some examples: the Homestead Act gave free land to Caucasians but excluded blacks. Blacks fleed from slavery, got no free land, and so were unable to accumulate capital. There's a little bit more. I'll forward that on to you. I hit the 3-minute mark. Dear Cottonwood Heights, this next one's David Cheney. Dear Cottonwood Heights City Council, I don't think there is any reason to cut the funding for the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. I haven't heard of any unjust police brutality in our city. This measure may be appropriate for some police departments in some large cities that have completely different situation than ours. Also, returning the policing to the county would give us less of a say over how justly the policing is carried out. The next one is from Ken Garner. My name is Ken Garner, professional engineer resident in Cottonwood Heights. I would like to say that I support police reform, improving our police and changing the way they interact with day-to-day citizens, and creating better accountability is exactly what we need. Many professions have had accountability added over the years. It's been a growing movement for highest quality, highest service, and highest accountability. It's high time that our police be taught to serve better, to engage in quality assurance and accountability that other professions have. Recently, there was a citizen rally where many in our city came together to learn and to throw support behind the idea of police reform. This was an amazing event with many experts invited to speak. It was peacefully organized, and many comments of support were read in the last business meeting for Councilwoman Tally Bruce, whose friends organized the event. Tally recognized that many in our city and wider community have suffered under the hands of the police, yes, even under the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. Nationally, Black Lives Matter support has surged. Our city is no different. We have a large number of residents who stand behind our minorities and for equal treatment. You as the city council represent all of us, including those that support BLM and our minority friends and neighbors. Councilman Doug Peterson last business meeting appeared to be angry, said he was disappointed with Councilwoman Bruce for bringing this element to our city. I'm here to say to Doug Peterson that that overused term is degrading and offensive. Historically, it's been used by privileged white homeowners to describe and reject apartment renters who may bring crime. It is used to describe the homeless, and it is used to describe our minority residents, to describe unwelcome people. It creates separation and does not treat people equally. I'm tired of people using this horrible phrase. It should never be uttered by a councilman whose city and district includes minorities, the poor, and rent payers. These people are part of our city. I'm offended to hear Mr. Peterson describe the people of our city as an element in such a hateful and angry tone. Mr. Peterson, that so-called element is a very diverse electorate that is already here. I am one that stands behind them. Mr. Peterson, you should be ashamed and should apologize to the residents of the city, to me, and especially to Ms. Bruce for publicly berating her. I would like to address the police supporters and including city employees who took part in the police support rally and commented last meeting. Many were under the impression that the reformers were trying to defund the police, as that has been an issue in other areas. The official literature and speakers at our event did not say anything about defunding the police. I was frankly displeased about the timing of the police support rally. It was chosen a bit earlier to counter and intimidate the reform protesters. They could have chosen the day after or a week later and still showed amazing support for the police. The city building was used to hang "We Love Our Police" posters, signs in our interior. It appeared very much the entire police department and many city employers participated in the police support rally. I've hit the 3-minute mark. I'll send you the rest of the comments of this one. The next one is from Kristen Miklos. I listened carefully to an excerpt of your council meeting of June 16th posted. I feel that I needed to address some of the comments I heard from Councilwoman Bruce. First, she stated that the nation needs to heal, and she has never seen the nation so divided. Yet she herself created divide and disharmony in our own community when she brought outside protesters here to support her personal agenda and narrative. She talked about our fantastic officers, how much she appreciates them, and her heart goes out to them. This was obviously nothing but lip service, as she demonstrated just the opposite by leading a protest against them. It concerns me that Councilwoman Bruce would be so offended, a word she uses liberally, by signs placed around police headquarters that were supportive of our officers. I fail to see how it politicized the police. Those signs were nothing more than a show of appreciation to those who risk their lives every day to protect us. It makes people happy to show their support in a tangible way. I find it very telling that the protest group she invited would childishly tear them down. Lastly, if anyone should be offended, it is the citizens of whom she collectively said I could hear their white supremacy, quote unquote, because they wanted to enthusiastically show their support for the police department. To Councilwoman Bruce, you don't know many of us, obviously, but I know you understand that calling people racist in today's world is the quickest way to shut down those with whom you disagree. Please don't stoop to that tired knee-jerk response. It's lazy. It isn't true, and we're tired of it. We are simply citizens of Cottonwood Heights who try to be good neighbors and support our police. We expect our city council to reflect that. The next one is from Debbie McIntosh. The times we are living is pushing us all to evaluate ourselves. Buried emotions coming to the surface. Our great opportunity here is to heal ourselves, families, cities, and nation. We all have things we can change ourselves and do better. We all have things we can change ourselves to do better. I have read Councilwoman Bruce has a personal vendetta for our PD and Chief Russo. If so, I question this action to undermine the very people she was elected to work with. Procedures are in place to deal with grievances, personal or community. Our city council's duty is to use proper channels concerning differences of opinion. She invited the BLM protest to our city. The BLM agenda and mission statement does not represent CH. As councilwoman of CH, isn't she there to represent all of CH? Is it appropriate for anyone in her position to align themselves with any political group? What about neutrality? CH doesn't have many of the issues being protested about. We have a very diverse and respectful citizenry and elected officials. I've lived here for over 50 years. CHPD are good men and women. We need more of them, not fewer. Pay them more, not less. Add to their resources. Their lives are on the line every day. They keep law and order in our cities, or destruction and chaos reigns. Our Constitution and Bill of Rights is based on law and order. The mindset of entitlement exists now, which muddies the water. For anyone to endorse criminal behavior is destructive on every level. The political message I heard from some of the BLM speakers and protesters elevated criminal behavior. Some things they said I could agree on. However, there seemed to be a one-way forward only message, and I find that difficult to get behind. It felt divisive. Every city has its own challenges and strengths. Our focus should be to fine-tune what works for our city. I like the idea of listening and sharing, so valuable. I had a few good conversations with a few BLM protesters. We agreed on more than not. Sad that COVID is dividing us further. Our CH Citizens Academy, sponsored and taught by CHPD, is amazing. I want to thank the city for funding it. Everyone should take it. as it opens the eyes to the dangers and troubling circumstances police officers deal with in an instant every day. Our police train continually. They should be cheered. What about their families? What about the dangerous circumstances they get thrown into every day because of others' choices? Black families have been hurt by cruel agendas and people in high places. Many untruths are being told about them in our recent American history. For every sad story we are hearing of repression, there are many more great stories of success. Very sad to see kneeling during the pledge or national anthems. It is divisive and takes away from our moment of unity. Can we stand together all during the brief moment in gratitude and honor of our great blessings? Many lives sacrificed for the love of country, freedom, unity, and justice, to thank God for this rich blessing of raising all our predecessors from bondage to have religious freedom, the right to choose accountability, liberty, freedom, justice for all. There's a little bit more, but I hit the 3-minute mark. Next one is Lisa Goodman. I'm writing to let you know I'm pleased with our Cottonwood Heights Police Department and feel they are doing a great job. They have been more than kind when responding to help. I am not happy with Councilwoman Mathilda Barth for causing a division in our community. All lives matter, not just Black lives. Black Lives Matter is an extreme organization that does not reflect my views or values. Why are we promoting division? I hope the public can wake up at election time and elect council people that reflect our community. I would like this read in the council meeting. I appreciate all you do for our community. Appreciate the service you render. Next one is Scott Bell. I support our local and state police departments. Having said that, no organization is immune from rogue and sometimes criminal elements, whether it's lawyers, clergy, scouts, private companies, nonprofits, police, or any other. If a county treasurer embezzles, that is a crime, and he or she should be held legally accountable. The police are no different. If a police officer commits a criminal act, he or she should be held accountable. No one is above the law, regardless of title or position. Perhaps not criminal, but just as troubling is systematic bias by police. All of us have biases, every single one of us. It is human nature, and we often don't even recognize it in ourselves. In policing, the only way we can know is to track police-civilian interactions and to be transparent about it. I request the CHPD implement a system of tagging every police report with checkbox on race. Was that suspect or complainant or a traffic violator of a particular ethnicity? I further request the statistics of police-civilian interactions with respect to race be made public as soon as possible, updated, say, every 24 hours. I'm not accusing the CHPD of systematic bias. I don't know if it exists or not, but CH might be surprised by the statistics it compiles. If bias does not exist, CH would want to know. After all, the city and its police department is committed to serving and protecting all of its citizens. Thank you for your consideration. Next one is Vicki Fulmer. We are 26-year residents of Cottonwood Heights. Up until Tally Bruce came along, we were happy members of the community. She came into her position on a false platform. While she was running for District 3, she never talked about police reform. She obviously had a hidden agenda, since this has been her main objective since being elected. She immediately attacked the police force and specifically the police chief. Since being elected, Ms. Bruce has brought a feeling of hostility and divisiveness. Instead of bringing people together, she tends to bring hostility and disagreement between Cottonwood Heights citizens. We've seen firsthand what our city was like before this current police department. The recent protests that she supported was negative and attacked the government, police department, and general Cottonwood Heights residents. Since our police department has taken over, we have seen a decrease in crime in our neighborhood and around our city. We've seen faster response times to calls. We've seen better support than we've ever had with the county sheriff. Chief Russo and the whole police department have 100% of our backing and full support. We are embarrassed at the harassment they have seen the past few years. The next one is from Jim Kitches. Dear Cottonwood Heights City Council, I would like to reiterate my support of Councilwoman Tally Bruce and ask the council to give serious consideration to the following police reforms for our community. One, the creation by ordinance of a citizen review board that, like Salt Lake City, audits and reviews citizen complaints regarding police conduct and provides periodic reports and recommendations. 2, transparent and specific police guidelines and best practices for the use of force. 3, no qualified immunity for any officer that is found guilty of violating individual civil rights. 4, specific and explicit prohibition on city police participation on the federal LESO 1033 program. 5, audit and ongoing review of police services and budget with funding reallocated as needed and appropriate to better support counseling, mental health services, victim advocate services, and any other possible areas that currently fall within the overly broad scope of police services. 6, enhanced and expanded outreach and advocacy services by the police department. The citizens of the city should know who our officers are outside of regular, often stressful citizen police interactions. Thank you for your time and service. The next one is from Kimberly Simons Cron. After reading the police chief is suing our city government and councilperson Tally Bruce, it appears Mr. Russo is using his position to derail Ms. Bruce's attempt to bring forth transparency and accountability in our city. I find there to be conflict of interest in having an active police chief both serving and suing our city. It is clear to community member that Mr. Russo has long earned his questionable reputation prior to Ms. Bruce taking office as a council district representative. Simply Google research his name with Cottonwood Heights Police and string of issues will result. Instances of miscellaneous police misconduct under Russo's leadership of the CHPD department, harassing local business owners, and internal sexual harassment, prying into medical records in violation of HIPAA Act, etc., preceded Ms. Bruce's time on council. It is unfortunate, but not unexpected that Mr. Russo has allowed his ego to get in the way of objectivity of his police work. Please answer to how community members to be assured there is trust in the police force contracted to serve our city when they are concurrently actively suing our city council. Ms. Tally Bruce, council member, and 10 unnamed John Does. One can only speculate from past history that it appears Mr. Russo will not be able to objectively uphold duties of his current position as the chief of police during an open lawsuit that he personally placed against our city. He has past history of presenting lawsuit at his former employer. When he was removed from office, suspended for violating protocol under former SL police force under Winder 2007 to 2010, can our city afford 3+ years of litigation? Mr. Russo is no stranger to litigation. His formed ongoing litigation dragged over into his years with CHPD. For these reasons, I strongly encourage our city to place Mr. Russo on administrative leave until such time a lawsuit settlement has resolved in this manner. The agreement between Russo's and Winder's attorneys fleshed out minutes before the scheduled merit commission hearing detailed Russo dropping a civil rights claim against the county in exchange for Winder purging disciplinary letters from his personnel file. That's a SLC trib, November 2010. Ms. Bruce has been well received not only by those in her district, but also those residing outside her district as she sees the community as a whole. We are not divided, we are Cottonwood Heights. We expect no less than that of our all civic leadership to promote policies for the health, safety, and welfare of its community members, and above, strive for transparency and accountability in civic leadership positions. Ms. Bruce has met the mark, whereas others in council fall short. She seems to be the only one willing to stand to uphold those principles. Per the discussion above, I also support police reform, the use of body cameras, and de-escalation training. There's a little bit more, but I've hit my 3 minutes. I'll pass that on to you. Next one is Carter Childers. The message is to support the Cottonwood Heights Police Department and the men and women serving us on the department. I respect and appreciate the work they do in enforcing our laws and providing the safe community we all enjoy. I strongly oppose the idea of arbitrarily defunding or diminishing the resources available to the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. Only criminals, anarchists, or persons who have never known crime would support the notion of minimizing the current condition of our public safety and law enforcement. No person or organization is perfect, but finding solutions and making improvements is rarely as simple as merely adding or subtracting dollars. The next one is Jean Wooldridge. I am E.R. Wooldridge Gray, the firstborn of 7, and lived 3/4 of my 65 years in the Salt Lake Valley. My mother was the second generation of Swiss immigrants in LDS. My father was Cherokee and Catholic. I claim no church. I've stood on every major peak in Wasatch. I attended the U of U. I learned to ski at Brighton and rock climb on Storm Mountain. I've lived in 5 states. I've worked in 16 states and 4 countries. I've seen incredible beauty and some of the most ugly things on earth. I am an observer in South Carolina. I clearly remember the day my childhood ended, just 1 week after my 6th birthday, had committed my first mortal sin. My punishment at the hand of an older child under the direction of his mother resulted in multiple bruises, a fractured skull, and as I learned 22 years later, the inability to ever father a child, my transgression. I have been seen in the company of a child of color. I thank the police for saving my father's life that day, as had they not arrived first and for their intervention, my father would not have also been lost. There's absolutely no doubt he would have murdered their entire family. When I was young, the police were heroes, and they still are. Police have the most dangerous job in the world, risking life and limb every day of the year protecting law and order. Police are the most noble, caring, committed members of our society. These are the best people to be role models for our youth and deserve our fullest support. Those self-entitled individuals that refuse to live by the basic rules that make society possible are fostering hate and contempt for law and order. These same people believe that only their vote counts. They are hate mongers. They pollute our children, throw tantrums, and destroy innocent lives for a spot in the limelight. It deeply saddens me to see the cancerous element in our local government and in our community. Not just criminals, all lives matter. I, for one, think it is a damn well time to not only support, but to embrace the noble folks working every day to keep us safe. Please increase funding for our police department that more good people may share in standing strong for our community safety and survival. I plead that our community come together and stand for the values that made this country the most diverse and greatest in the world. Next one is John Hammond. I can't believe at this time that anyone on the Cottonwood Heights City Council would even consider taking any money away from our police department, especially after watching what is happening around the country. If anything, we should be increasing their funding and giving all of them raises. Our police for Cottonwood Heights do a wonderful job, and we should be grateful for their sacrifice and service. They really care about our city and citizens in it. All of this doesn't happen by accident. It is because they have a good leader at the top, Chief Russo. He does an excellent job and has worked hard to make sure we have one of the best police units in the Salt Lake Valley. I do not know Chief Russo personally, but every time I have had interactions with him, he has been extremely professional, very giving to the community, and noticeably good and caring to the men and women that he commands. The last thing I would like to say is, Tally Bruce, you are an embarrassment to our community. You've had an axe to grind with Chief Russo and our police force from the moment you were elected into office. The majority of our community really appreciate our police force and wants them to continue with the amazing service they provide and the wonderful leadership from Chief Russo. If this isn't to your liking, Tally Bruce, then resign and move to some city that wants to defund their police force. Next one's Frank Smith. To our mayor and all who will decide on the future of our city, I would like to express my full support to our police department and my opposition to defunding them. I hope that cool heads will prevail as you discuss options for these times. It's time to act and not to react to the troubling events we have recently experienced. While I do not support defunding, I do support transparency and training and accountability for our officers that put their lives on the line and make our community better, safer place to live. There are already good examples of how we would suffer as a community if we took the radical step of defunding. Please learn from the mistakes of our communities who reacted to the tragic recent events. The next one is from Luann Levitt. I want to write to express my gratitude for our Cottonwood Heights Police Department. I'm concerned at the outrage and unruly behavior that some of our citizens are expressing toward our police, not only in our community, but throughout the country. It is very concerning that we do not appreciate the daily sacrifice made on behalf of our police to keep our community safe. I'm also concerned that the citizens that are creating all of this chaos have yet to provide any solution to their outrage. Have they stopped to think that when that intruder comes to their front door, who will they call? They seem to only want to be angry without having dialogue to come up with solutions. In fact, they do not seem to want to engage in any civil dialogue to solve any of the issues they are feeling. I have visited other countries where the police force is not a community entity. They can be bought and are corrupt. We cannot judge our entire police force based on a few, but that when put in an extremely stressful situation, make bad decisions. I would hate to see our community politicize such serious allegations into the non-support of our community peacekeepers. If anyone, more support would be needed to provide additional training in handling escalated situations with our community members. I also want to express that even though this group may be the loudest, they do not represent the majority of Cottonwood Heights citizens. That is not who we are. We support and appreciate our police officers and the daily sacrifice they make to keep the peace in the community. I would ask those angry, frustrated, and emotional citizens of our community to step up to the table and civilly express any possible solutions to problems they personally have experienced with our police department. I would guess that if the department were aware of personal experiences, not hearsay, they would be able to address the issue and solve it within a short matter of time without media attention. Using the media to make us afraid is not solving the problem. Step to the table and let's talk. Having been in a leadership position, I know how difficult it is to solve problems when citizens are not willing to identify themselves or come to the table to discuss it with possible solutions. To those citizens escalating the situation through your anti-police rallies and media exploits, what is your solution to no police department in Cottonwood Heights? Are you going to come to my home and get that intruder? I have lived in Cottonwood Heights my entire life. It is one of the greatest communities I've ever been associated with, and I think as citizens we need to rise above the hate and make our community the example to all others around us. Let's show anyone that can work together and strengthen what we have. Police officers, educators, community council members, mayor, and even our neighbors. One good deed a day is a great way to begin. We have become a society of hate and anger. No one is perfect, but we all have good. Let's stop focusing on the negative, find the positive, and build together from there. The only way we can grow is to work together, build each other, communicate, find common ground, and make our community even better. Thank you for listening, and thank you for all that you do. Next one is Kathy Keeler. Utah has a proud history of doing the right thing. Today, Governor Herbert addressed police brutality by banning police chokeholds and racism by elevating multicultural leaders. Yesterday, the Salt Lake City Police banned chokeholds and the use of tear gas. All across the country, people are being educated about the long history of systematic brutality and racism of police throughout the nation. In stark contrast to all the progress being made, Trump, always divisive, threatened to take back Seattle. His admonishment to both the military and the police to solve the problem is a call to even more brutality. Chief Russo put solve the problem on every CHPD vehicle. Chief Russo is Exhibit A of what is wrong with policing in America today with its patterns of harassment, spying on political activists, and lack of accountability. If problems are to be solved, everyone must participate in an effort dedicated to promoting safety within our community and with law enforcement by addressing racism within the Cottonwood Heights Police Department and ensuring that contracts do not evade legitimate accountability. The police can't solve the problem, they are the problem. A solve the problem motto on every police car is a setup for a negative interaction, particularly in today's charged political climate. It encourages a Trump-like escalation of the problem, not a true problem-solving scenario. The next one is Chrissy Norton. With all that has been going on, I thought it was important to send a quick note to say that we love Cottonwood Heights Police. We appreciate all you do to keep us safe, and we think it's important you know how we really feel. Next one is Chris Patch. My name is Chris Patch. I live on Brewer Avenue, Cottonwood Heights. I'm a husband, a father of 4, and now after a recent theft we experienced, I'm a huge fan of Detective Griffith and the CHPD. Recently, while on a date hiking in Ferguson Canyon, our daughter Lily's purse and all of its contents, including her brand new iPhone 10, was stolen out of her date's car, which was locked and parked at the trailhead parking in the Top of the World neighborhood. Lily called my wife and I immediately upon returning to the car and finding the break-in, and we then reported it to our CU, AT&T, and CHPD. Needless to say, we all felt victimized and very upset and frustrated with this theft. The thieves drained $100 off of Lily's debit card before we got it locked up, but fortunately the CU and Visa were able to refund that amount in the days that followed. Additionally, Lily had house keys and her scooter keys in the purse, so we had to have both of those rekeyed as well. But the phone was the big ticket item for us. The iPhone 10 was Lily's high school graduation gift and the actual first non-hand-me-down phone that she's ever had. And so she was pretty sad having to revert back to her old glitchy, cracked screen hand-me-down phone. But on the following day and the days to come, we met with and spoke with Detective Griffith from CHPD several times, And may I just say that I was blown away by the detective's great efforts. He immediately went to work speaking with our CU, Holiday Oil, and 7-Eleven, chasing pause transactions and surveillance footage. And then 2 weeks into his little investigation, he calls that he found the phone in Kentucky, of all places, and it was being sent back to Utah. Kentucky? And then 2 days later, he stopped by the house to personally return the phone to us. The phone is still in perfect condition. We've been able to restore the data, and our Lily is absolutely over the moon and on cloud 9. In all sincerity, I really believe that it's the little things in this life that matter most, but I also believe that they're taken for granted the most because they're so seemingly insignificant and often get overlooked. So when we reported the person phone stolen, I seriously had resigned my hopes and had written the whole thing off, chalking it up to bad luck. A similar experience with CHPD's predecessor had set my expectation low, but I'm so grateful to report that Detective Griffith with CHPD handled our little thing like someone who really cares about the little things too. He probably didn't have to put much effort into our little case, and no one would have been there wiser, but he totally did. And because of the determination and integrity, our family, and especially our Lily, are absolutely thrilled and extremely grateful that he cared about the little things. We've been super impressed and super grateful for Detective Griffith and CHPD's efforts. Detective Griffith has been very diligent in caring with our little case, and so I think it's all together fitting and proper that I try to reciprocate. And that ends that. There's a little bit more I will forward on to you. Next one is Mark. Just 1 second here. The next one is Mark Boring. We are so grateful for the Cottonwood Heights Police, City Police Department, and totally support all that the force does for our safety and community. Please accept our heartfelt gratitude and support. We are new to Utah and just moved here about 8 months ago and are so comfortable with our tight community. The citizens and neighbors are just amazing, kind and helpful. We love it here and know it's this way because of the great city leadership and departments that care for the safety and well-being of the people who live here. We support you and want your continued leadership. Let me see, and focus in keeping our community safe and protected. Excuse me, this is from Mark and Leanne Lundquist. Mark Boring was in the title of the email. The next one is Jackie Nickel. We live in a wonderful area of Salt Lake Valley. We feel safe in our environment due to the wonderful support of the dedicated professionals who serve in the Cottonwood Heights Police Force. We have the utmost respect for the work they do and think police officers are very much needed. Chief Russo and his department are always there to serve the citizens of our great city. In a world full of chaos, let us remember who it is that rushes in to protect us from the willful and those who would commit crimes against us. Thank you for your dedicated service. The next one is from Robert Orton. Each policeman is a human being who loves and is loved by someone or many. He or she performs a valuable service for me and my family, and I believe for society in general. My wife and I have resided in the countries of Eastern Europe and Western Europe for 12 plus years and are firsthand witnesses of the superiority of our local police force to those we have observed and encountered in those countries. Yes, occasionally we encounter an exception to the general rule, as is the case with all groups of public servants and for that matter, non-public organizations. However, it would be a grave mistake to eliminate or substantially alter the composition and job description of our local police force, particularly at this time when well-reasoned decisions run the risk of being negatively impacted by emotions which are so intense in the face of the Minneapolis incident. The next one is from David Rupper. As a Cottonwood Heights resident and taxpayer, I wish to express my support for Cottonwood Heights Police Department. I'm aware of the flames of social unrest burning in America. While there may be a need for police reform in some large urban areas in the country, I do not believe there is a similar need in Cottonwood Heights. Based on my observation, the CH Police Department is properly performing their duties, and they are to be commended for protecting our community. Recently, I've heard talk of defunding police departments, and such talk is illogical and without feasibility. I believe the members of the CH Police Department are honorable men and women who are honoring the oaths they have taken to protect our community. This country is built upon law and order. I'm very concerned about efforts, however well-intentioned, that would undermine the stability of our community. The next one is from Kelly and Mark Jensen. We love and support our Utah police force and feel incredibly grateful to live in Cottonwood Heights with the amazing officers that we have here. Thank you for all you do. We hope the voices of gratitude and support drown out the others. Next one is Kathy Jensen. With all the commotion across the country concerning unfair, brutal, and racist practices of some police, particularly against communities of color, we would like to weigh in on our own Cottonwood Heights Police Department and ask that you read into the record this following. Whenever we have interacted with our city police officers, we have been impressed with their demonstrations of compassion, professionalism, and timeliness. We have even had occasion to involve Chief Russo in one incident. He also was helpful and professional. In fact, after those interactions, we felt that he had become a friend. We are Caucasians and do not pretend to understand the fear our friends of color have of police in general. I do know that they are statistically more likely to have a bad experience with officers of the law. However, we also know that this reality has painted all police officers with a broad brush. Our experience has been very good with CHPD. However, we do hope that this intense climate of change will cause Chief Russo and the city's mayor and council to carefully evaluate all policies and procedures in the CHPD to ensure racism is vetted in hiring, discussed in training, and evaluated on an ongoing basis throughout the department. We also ask that our city evaluate procedural recommendations that police officers have to follow. We would like to see interactions when possible to focus on helping rather than punishing. A community committee composed of people of various races, socioeconomic standing, occupations, etc., could be brought together to make sure our city is and stays the wonderful city we believe it to be. Having said this, we recognize that our police officers are willing and do put themselves in harm's way to protect all of us and our responsibly free way of life. Please know that we are 100% behind each and every police officer serving this great city of Cottonwood Heights. We have deep gratitude for their service and wish all of them a safe and peaceful watch. The next one is from Jim McKean. I've heard that someone on the city council is asking to defund the Cottonwood Heights Police Department in these times where chaos, rioting, violence, and civil disobedience is escalating every year. The very thought of defunding the Cottonwood Heights Police Department is insane, to say at least. I would hope that such a notion will be suppressed quickly and never brought up again. Thank you for all you do for our city. Next one is Gregory Switzer. I'm writing in strong support of our local police department here in Cottonwood Heights. They have served this community for many years with respect and honor and consistently protected the citizenry and property. I am very concerned about some leaders who would think to defund or remove our police department from city control. I absolutely would not support such an irrational move that would endanger the safety of our community. I would encourage the city administration to do all it can to counter any effort to do this. Thank you for all you do. The next one is from Cheryl Nunn. I've noticed that the Cottonwood Heights police slogan has solved the problem. In my opinion, it's out of date and harmful to community sensitivities as at this difficult time of sadness and protest in our country. While it may seem a little common, it would be more helpful to our communities now to emphasize that the police are peace officers and they show up to serve and protect us, please. We can't expect our police to solve our problems with brutal force, or can or should we, as your current slogan suggests. How about something more like serving and protecting our community since 1920, or insert the correct year policing began in Cottonwood Heights. Please lead thoughtfully at this important time of change and re-examine all aspects of your police policies so that we can move forward with much better community and police relations in the future. I found a website that may be very helpful to you as you discuss ideas at this challenging time to support both your police department and your community. It's at 8cantwait.org. You may even have your city listed there as being very helpful in building better relationships with your community and police department. Next one is James Jones. In my opinion, we at Cottonwood Heights have one of the finest departments in the state. It would be a great blessing to be able to pay them what they are really worth. With that being said, their professionalism and the example they set for us is unfortunately not appreciated enough by everyone. Having worked with these fine officers for many years, they not only have my appreciation, but by their example, have my complete confidence and trust. The next one is from Carter Childers. This message is to support the Cottonwood Heights Police Department and the men and women serving us on the department. I respect and appreciate the work they are doing to enforce our laws and providing a safe community we all enjoy. I strongly oppose the idea of arbitrarily defunding or diminishing the resources available to the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. Only criminals, anarchists, or persons who've never known crime would support the notion of minimizing the current condition of our police safety and law enforcement. No person or organization is perfect, but finding solutions and making improvements is rarely as simple as merely adding or subtracting dollars. The next one is from Odette Waddups. I've been a resident of Cottonwood Heights since 1979. I love it here. I've always felt like this is a very special community that works together for the good of everyone. Since the protest on Monday, June 15th, organized by Tally Bruce, I feel things changing. I feel like she's trying to divide our wonderful city. I can't figure out why. We have wonderful leaders, an exceptional police force, and all the amenities a city could need. People are friendly, caring, and helpful. Tally, what is your goal in tearing it all apart? I attended the pro rally on Monday to show my support for the incredible men and women who put their lives on the line every day for me. I heard someone say they signed up for this, so what's the big deal? Really, you honestly think they signed up because they wanted to be in harm's way every day? I prefer to think they signed up because they care about people and obeying laws and giving back to their community. I heard Tally say on Fox 13 that the reason we pro people came was because she took a knee during the pledge at the previous council meeting. I had no idea she did that until I heard it on the news, but I'd like to talk about that. I taught American history for 38 years. My students learned about founding fathers and how this country came to be. I installed a sense of pride in them for living in America. I taught them to stand and put their hand over their heart during the national anthem and the Pledge of Allegiance. I taught them to honor this great country by standing straight and thinking about how great we have it here. It has nothing to do with race, only pride and gratitude. At last week's council meeting, Tally said that she wished all us white supremacists had stayed to hear the amazing speakers. First of all, I am not a white supremacist, and neither are all the friends and neighbors I stood by. I left because I felt like I had made my point, which is that I wholeheartedly support the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. I was also offended that she brought in the BLM group. I thought we were there to address things in Cottonwood Heights. I was one of those who put the hearts on the building. We had already planned to do it, but decided to do it for the rally to let the police department know we're grateful for them. We had a premonition to do it, and it was not to make a political statement. We just wanted to show them that we appreciate what they do for us. I understand the protesters tore them all down. Thank you. We would have done it, but you saved us from all that work. Next one is from, we're getting close here, so bear with me as far as the time. The next one is from Carol Garland. I live in District 1 with my husband, Wayne, and have lived in Cottonwood Heights since 1977. I had the opportunity to help make hearts for the Cottonwood Heights Police Department and was able to go and put them on the windows. I was so happy to do this because I appreciate the support we get to keep us safe in our community. We even had a man from Mapleton come out of the East Stores and say he wanted to help. He said he was going back to his town and do the same for his police. As we were putting the hearts up, we had a few of the officers come out and tell us how much they appreciated it. We asked if we needed to take the hearts down and were told to leave them up because they really appreciated them. Later, we found out that the protesters had taken them all down. I was very disappointed because we weren't making a political statement. All we wanted to do was honor the police. I heard that a police department in the south end of the valley was also heart attacked, quote unquote, several weeks ago, and their hearts are still on their building. That night, my husband and I had the opportunity to come and participate in the rally for our police department. We stood on Bengal Boulevard holding a police flag. We raised it when people drove by and waved and honked their horns. It was especially inspiring when the officers heading to their shift flashed their lights and turned on their sirens. I appreciate that I feel safe in Cottonwood Heights and can call if I need help. Thank you, Cottonwood Heights Police Department. I can't imagine why anyone would want to take money away from them. In my view, they should make more money than they do now. They put their lives at risk every day. Why would we defund them? The next one is James Farley. As a citizen in Cottonwood Heights, I would like to send you a quick note in full support of the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. In the years that I've lived in the city, we have been very impressed with their professionalism, kindness, and response time when needed. Just recently, we had a speed sign placed in our neighborhood voluntarily by the police department to help slow down the traffic going to Crestwood Park. And this time that we live, I'm sure there are messages counter to mine, and I did not want to quietly sit aside. Please express my support for the police department and to the city council and mayor's office as you see fit. Next one is Amber Morzaleski. Dear Mr. Tingy, I've only met you a handful of times and you may not remember me, but my name is Amber Morzaleski. I am the wife of one of the officers in the Cottonwood Heights Police Department, as well as a citizen of Cottonwood Heights for the past 11 years. I'm saddened by all the events that are occurring in the world today and all the hate that my husband and his colleagues are facing. I normally don't get involved and just show my support at home and let things just roll off our backs, so to speak. However, I couldn't let the events that happened in downtown Salt Lake City on Saturday, May 30th go without saying something, especially after seeing so many people posting such hatred and ignorant comments towards police. I posted something to my personal Facebook account and have shared it as an attachment. My hope is that you'll read it during the council meeting on June 15th. I think, and this is what that says, at this point in my life, I believe in the quality of my friendships, not so much the quantity. I believe in everyone having their own opinion on things. Let me tell you how difficult this week has been for me as a police wife. Everyone is pushing their own agenda of Black Lives Matter and how you can't say all lives matter, or if I say blue lives matter, then I'm racist. I ask all of you to put yourselves in the shoes of the family members of these police officers. If you can't imagine it, let them paint the picture for you. Let me paint the picture for you. You have 2 kids, elementary age, so not quite old enough to fully understand everything going on in the world right now. All they understand is when dad's work phone rings, he has to leave. They see what's happening downtown on the news, and worry in their faces is something you can never unsee. As their dad kisses them both goodbye with see you later, because goodbye isn't something you say in these situations. He leaves to head downtown to the riots. You immediately turn off the news and put on the happier show to get kids' minds off of their dad leaving. All the while you are receiving text messages and calls asking if your husband is home and prayers for his safety, which are appreciated more than you'll ever know. That night was the worst night of my life as a police wife. After putting my kids to bed, you finally get to turn on the news and see what's going on. You see people lighting fireworks close enough to the police officers and they explode and hit people you know. You see so many things being thrown at the officers, yet they don't react. I, however, am furious. They don't deserve this. Then you finally get the text message you've been waiting for all night. Headed back to the office. I'll be home soon. Get to sleep. The relief you feel is so much that you just start to cry. The next day on social media, you see people you thought were your friends saying things like the police deserved, and then there's a swear word. The police, there are no good apples. They're all power hungry and many other hurtful things. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. The anger I felt that day is even worse today because no one wants to believe there are good cops. I can honestly tell you there are. I know lots of them, but why waste my breath? So just know if I'm stop talking to you, this is why. You hurt me, and I never thought possible I will stand by my blue family no matter what. If you don't unfriend me because I'm done with you. Then she says, I think and feel that many people forget the police officers are only human, that many of them have families. If my words can give an insight to the life and behind the badge, I hope they are shared, because I hope no one has to feel the way I did that night, trying to stay positive for my children so that they are not afraid. The next one is from Emily Weigel. I appreciate the opportunity to have my email read to the Cottonwood Heights City Council. Myself and my family have always supported our police men and women. And quick shout out to the EMS firefighters as well. We've personally been the recipients of care by CHPD officers. Every day, CHPD officers and staff step into the unknown, and I am thankful for their service and dedication to a career that can change by the second, minute, hour, and day. During this time of scrutiny, I would expect the CHPD will continue to look within, talk with local representatives, and engage with the community to work through any concerns. I'm confident CHPD employs the best of the best. I'm confident that the City Council will work with CHPD to ensure that they continue to receive the best education and training available. Thank you again for the opportunity to express our gratitude and support to the CHPD employees. Down to my last 3. Next one from Tammy Hansen, or Ken and Tammy Hansen. Good afternoon. It has come to our attention that there are rumors in the Cottonwood Heights communities to defund the Cottonwood Heights Police Department. We have lived in and been part of this community for 45 years, and this is so disheartening and almost sickening to hear. These men and women are professional, kind, fair, and honorable, and concerned for the citizens of this community. I've seen them talk down suicidal people, known that they have been the first one in to find a person who did in fact who had committed suicide, and watch them hold mom's hand as they told them that their son died in an accident. There are things they do almost daily. These are not one-offs. They are the worst. They are the worst of the worst. They are spit on, cussed at, and yet they show up again and again to protect us. The images of what they see daily do not leave them. They cannot unsee a mangled person or a dead child. These images are embedded with them for life. I have seen them put their lives on the line. Would regular citizens be willing to do this? Are you willing to put the lives of the community at risk by defunding them? By defunding them, you are. They are fine men and women, trained, qualified, upstanding people behind the badge and deserve our respect. Are they perfect? Probably not. Are they expected to be? Are our citizens more perfect? The thought of taking funds away has our family terrified. I go to bed feeling safe, protected, and watched over, and we will not sit idly by and let fear come into the community we have built. Please know that we are completely against this and will do what it takes to ensure that it does not happen. Next one is from Heather Anderson. Many neighbors and I spent a couple of days and many hours cutting hearts and writing messages of respect, appreciation, and gratitude to our local officers who have been vilified as a profession in the media. They are innocent of other actions. It's not fair to blame all for a few. We wanted to help and put a smile on their faces. Our plan to show our officers our gratitude have been in the works for quite some time. When we heard that Miss Bruce was hosting a police reform rally on behalf of our city, we felt the need to expedite our efforts and show our officers we care. We put up our hearts and asked to be called when they'd like them taken down so we could clean them up. I'm curious, Miss Bruce, did you read the messages before your attendees wrote them down? They were full of appreciation and our acknowledgement of what our good men and women do and sacrifice day after day in a hostile environment to better our community. And I, Miss Bruce, am a taxpayer, as are my neighbors. We pay for that building. That building is the people's house. That was not a politicized advertisement, although I was impressed by your spin. I find it interesting that such a show of appreciation got so deeply under your skin, especially since you claim you love your officers. On the Cottonwood Heights local politics Facebook page, I asked about topics to be discussed at the rally. Miss Bruce's main organizer, Anna McNamara, posted a list of topics, including Aid is Great and the defunding movement, and encouraged me to educate myself further. The day of the rally, I asked if defunding would be discussed. She said aspects of it would be included and posted a fact sheet on defunding, saying it really isn't that scary. Miss Bruce can deny knowing about her main organizer discussing defunding on a public site she is a member of. However, many citizens read about it on that page. I have copies of the correspondence, so much of the conspiracy theory. Ms. Bruce said it's time to listen to both sides and to feel and hear the pain of those being suppressed, targeted, discriminated against, bullied, harassed, and yes, it happened in our city. Yes, it does. I know it does. I have had to suppress my concerns. I've been targeted and bullied for trying to have a true discussion for change with her supporters. None of my suggestions are even heard because I believe we must have police officers. That's a problem. What about our good officers? Think they feel bullied, harassed, targeted? I know they do. I see it in their faces. I didn't feel welcomed or safe to stay and attend the reform rally. I did watch the rally on the Facebook replay. I was disappointed that those speaking left out many facts to try to create a narrative of bad cops. I have the internet. I do not just believe what I am told. I get all the facts I can. I will not be duped into a false narrative. You made it quite clear that defunding was a vicious rumor. If you did not intend to defund our police services, why were you the only one who voted against this year's budget? And that's my 3 minutes. There's a little bit more I'll send that to you. And the last one that I have is Eric Anderson. We learn when we learn to listen to each other. I wholeheartedly agree, Miss Bruce, but not once did I see you interact with the early rally attendees. I saw the mayor and the other council persons wandering and talking with the people. Not you. Perhaps you were busy with the media spinning your narrative that we were all there because you took a knee during city council the previous week. I knew nothing of it until the news report on Fox 13. I wish those early protesters had stayed, you said. First of all, we were not protesters. We weren't protesting anything. We were there to show our local officers our appreciation. Did you listen to any of the comments read last week that your attendees were physically and verbally intimidating early attendees? Many attendees were elderly, had kids with them, or just plain didn't want to engage with rude, angry people. Where is your concern for them and their voices? I watched the replay of the rally on Facebook. Although I can empathize, I found the speeches were mainly based on feelings and limited facts. Many facts were left out or skewed. I'm very disappointed in your politicized rally. Limited facts, no statistics, one side's opinion, and no solutions offered. You also said, speaking of our early rally attendees, I hear their fear and I hear their white supremacy, and I get it. They want things just the way they've always been in their perceived tidy suburbia, end quote. How do you know what we want? You clearly are not asking, discussing, or listening to anyone outside of your own narrative. Do you know the definition of white supremacy? The belief that white people are superior to those of all other races, especially the black race, and should therefore dominate society? That is not Cottonwood Heights. That was not the elderly citizens or citizens with families leaving out of concern for their safety. How dare you and your perceived biases. You said equality can feel like suppression. Equality feels nothing of that sort. The definition of equality is the state of being equal, especially in status, rights, and opportunities. That does not mean you take from one person to give to another. There is enough for everyone. You have the right and opportunity to earn what others have worked for. We will not be bullied into giving up our freedoms because you call our citizens racist. Do not perceive our empathy or desire to make changes for a better future for all citizens, including our officers, a weakness you can exploit. I would call on the council and city officials to hold all city employees accountable for their actions and their words. Callie Bruce is quick to attempt to discredit others like Doug Peterson for being new. She tried to manipulate the truth of our rally by saying on Fox News that our rally was aimed at her taking a knee. She twisted the good actions of citizens showing our support for our officers by hard attacking the building with words of appreciation, and is now attacking our citizens as white supremacists. And that ends my 3 minutes. I'll send this to you. And that's all the comments I have.
I'll address some of that since a lot of it was directed at me.
Well,
Is that okay, Mayor? Just a couple items.
1 second. I think we'll let everybody. I just want everybody to understand that that was 2 hours and 10 minutes, and we want those who are listening to understand that everyone had an opportunity, and we appreciate those comments. You know, some of them were very polarizing. I think there wasn't one common theme, and I think there was a common theme on both sides of the comments that defunding is not a priority of either side, and there was consistency in training and education. I think because you as council members are also all citizens, and this is a topic that we're hearing not just tonight, but through the week, allow each of you to take a few moments and comment. Then we'll do our action items. Then we will adjourn and come back to the work session. And then in the work session, we can decide how long you want to spend talking about the subject on the agenda, because I think it's more than one meeting, and we want to be fair and open, to be educated as to the policies and responsibilities of our police. Also, we'll want to talk about some new nuances that we want to look at, but we'll talk about that at the end. With that being said, Tally, you asked to go first, so go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of comments were directed at me, and there was a very common Nazi phrase, if you tell a lie big enough and you keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. It was stated over and over and over again that my rally was to defund police, 25 times, in fact, during those comments, and never once have I uttered the phrase defund the police. So it makes me wonder who is soliciting these emails to be read for how many, 2.5 hours by Tim Tingey. I've never uttered the phrase defund police, and 100% the rally was for reform. And I feel horrible that anyone felt harassed there. I did not personally observe anyone getting harassed. I doubt that these comments will make the soundbite of whoever is editing these YouTube clips and sharing amongst their group. But I truly believe that the police support rally was 100% organized to intimidate the reform rally as they showed up. Why else would they organize it immediately before our rally? They were 100% there to intimidate people asking for reform, people who are feeling marginalized that wanted to be heard. So yeah, 25 times I was accused of defunding the police. There were a couple calls to pay our police officers more. I would support that. I would 100% support. I think it's a no-brainer that we want the absolute best people. I would rather have one highly trained professional who's skilled, a terrific cop, than 2 horrible cops. So let's get the best of the best and pay them a premium. I would be ecstatic to do that. Officers like Griffith, who has repeatedly been praised for his interactions with the public. That's what we want. We want officers that will go above and beyond to make those interactions positive, so that people don't feel marginalized, discriminated against, abused, picked on because of their color, targeted for questioning because of their color. Sorry, I have a lot of notes here. When it comes, I understand when it comes to asking for reform, people are resistant to change. Everybody resists change. In fact, there's a saying that until the fear of things staying the same is greater than the fear of change, people won't change. And I would hate to think that our community interactions have to become so atrocious that people are fearful of how things are, fearful of the status quo. Why can't we be continually improving, seeking to be the best of the best, seeking to have our interactions positive, supporting, having a police force that protects and serves and treats those citizens like their family members, like they're concerned about their welfare, not that they're targeting someone who is immediately assumed to be of criminal intent. I'm going to take a break and let somebody else talk for a minute.
Somebody else, the council member, would like to make some comments on the public comment period?
Yeah, I would, the equation of Nazi propaganda to any of the things that were read or said there, to me, is out of place. And that I'm very, very sorry about. Whether or not Tally, you've said defunding, that message clearly got through to many people who either read or saw what was going on, and that was the interpretation. In a lot of cases, for good or bad, perception is reality. I do believe that people that organized the pro rally were doing it to show their support. None of the people I saw there, and I knew a lot of them, were there to intimidate. That's just not who they are. And so I take some exception to that. We can always seek for improvement. And I was going to make this comment later when we discuss things, but it should be positive, and it should be thing that we look towards doing. But I do take issue with a question being asked in a manner that just is a thinly veiled accusation, and I hope we can avoid that, because things should be positive. And there are places that we can improve, I'm sure of it. we need to find them, we need to seek them out, and we should do them. I am in complete agreement with that.
I'd agree, Scott. I think there is nothing more American than striving for a more perfect union. That's all we're doing. We're striving for a more perfect union. There are people in this community who don't feel heard, that feel like they're on the radar to be targeted, and they don't feel like the officers are protecting and serving them. And it's a very small handful that executes this agenda of retaliation. It's a very small handful, but it deserves to be addressed. No one deserves to be bullied, targeted, harassed. I think we can strive to be a more perfect union, and I think that's the most American thing that we can do.
Okay, thank you, Tally. Doug, go ahead.
Oh, I'd just like to take exception to the group that was there to support the police and show their love and support were not there to intimidate anyone. The difference between the two groups was stark. I know that some of the messages were heartfelt and given, but a lot of it was, if you fact checked it, it was not. Many of them were not correct. And I know when you get into emotion, you can say things. A lot of the attorney that is a DUI attorney, I mean, he had a lot of vitriol for I'm sure his clients. I know that some of the things that were said were not true, but that not saying that we don't need we need to look at things in different ways. But the love and support that was shown to our officers could never be misconstrued as anything to do with white supremacy, white privilege. It was a love and support of our officers, and I will never say that that wasn't a good thing to have, and it was not a counter protest.
That's your interpretation, Doug. As I approached the area, I felt intimidated. There were young men on the corner hooting and hollering as the police raced up and down with their lights and their sirens, and they were waving big flags. I felt intimidated. I felt like I was approaching a white supremacy rally with them hooting and hollering and waving flags. It was intimidating. It was very intimidating. And I know there were a couple who had offensive posters, and there's some youth that are angry. They want change and they want it right now, and I respect that, but certainly there were bad actors on both sides.
Okay, thank you. Christine, any comments?
I think Doug was speaking, but he was on mute. I don't know if he wants to.
Oh, I was just saying that I don't think American flag should intimidate anyone. It was not made, you know, there was groups that were hanging out signs that were very offensive. Not, somebody did drive by quickly with flags and a Trump sticker. That does not mean that they were white supremacists. And that is something that was kind of shocking to me.
I agree. I didn't think that was in good taste. I didn't think the young man who drove by in his car making lots of noise and yelling at the people with signs was in place either. And Tally, I'm sorry that you felt that way when you approached. I personally did not, nor did I feel out of place through the second rally either. I had hoped and I expected that things would be peaceful and go well, and they did. And for that, actually, I was very pleased when I went home.
All right, thank you. Christine?
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately, I was on a vacation with my family, so I wasn't able to attend. I'm saddened that we're in a pandemic right now, and we can't be in a forum where people can be at the podium and we can speak to each other. I'm troubled by the reading of letters, and I feel like we need to do better the next time around. I've never felt like this type of a forum is productive. I think it's leading to more divisiveness within our council and within our community. I don't know how to solve that, but I hope that in the future we can find a way to come together, because I think in the end we have more in common than we have differences. I believe our police force is great. I think that we can go from great to excellent or perfect. Again, I'm sorry I wasn't able to be there to really comprehend the totality of all that's been conversed this evening. But Tim, thank you for spending the 2 hours and 15 minutes speaking. That was a tremendous energy that you have there. But I do hope that we can work together as a council and a community to become better. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. And just in summary, and tonight is difficult. This is a unique approach to taking public comment, and it's unfortunate that some of the comments start to become personal. I've learned in my long career that the most progressive way to handle challenges like this is to try and take the personalities out and deal with the facts and issues. And several of you alluded to that. And I've also learned in my career that successful quality organizations are always improving, are always changing. So we can't be afraid to look at how we can improve, how we change. I was at both rallies all the way through. I talked to many of them, both sides. And once they knew I was the mayor, they took opportunity to talk to me, and I appreciated that. I never felt threatened on either side. I felt those that were there early had talked to me about planning to leave an hour before the other rally left, so they hopefully would not have to interchange. But then some says, well, wait a minute, I feel comfortable to be here. I'd like to stay and listen. Again, some of the reform people rallying did have some offensive signs and things. I said they were angry. That was unfortunate. I felt the signs on the building I thought were very positive, was very uplifting. It was something that I felt was a good thing. But again, we all have personal opinions. That's why we have 5 people on the council, so we can talk. I support what Christine just said, that if we can find a way to focus on the issues, like tonight I listed, as probably all of you did, of some of the common themes. One of the common themes was, let's make sure we have efficient training and education. Well, part of tonight's agenda is to become educated on what training education we have. Does it need to be tweaked? Do we need to add more to it? Well, let's talk about it. But it's not, I don't think it's a personal thing. It should be what's right. I agree with what Tally said. Even though a lot of the comments were at defunding, I think the overall opinion of all the people who submitted comments today, I don't think any of them were focused on defunding. Okay. I understand the perception of some of what they feel, and I can see and interpret that because of some of the questions and stuff that have come up over time about transparency and budget and all stuff. So that's optics, I guess. But at least through the public comment tonight, I did not see any support on either side of defunding. I'm sure there may be some question of allocation stuff and on training. But going forward, we need to talk about the importance of mental health support for our officers in training and as employees. We'll probably talk about body cameras. We went through that a couple years ago. The review board is an interesting thing. Okay, I've had bad experience with it, but I know that there's an opportunity for working with Utah League of Cities and Towns to talk about how that can be applied. Should it be applied? Okay, most cities have shied away from it, but some are revisiting it. Well, we can talk about it. I'm not afraid to talk about anything. I think to support our police chief in hiring diversity. Okay, I know that in my many conversations with Chief Russo, he's always strived to hire diversity. We talk about accountability. That was mentioned many times. Okay, where is that? Well, I need to be educated on how we handle accountability. I know there's lots of policies in place, but we need to review those. Some people talk about our slogan. Well, let's find out. Let's talk about our messaging. Okay, why was a slogan created? How is it applied? What's the meaning of it to our officers, let alone to the constituents? There's a whole myriad of issues we can talk, but I think it really has come to time to be less divisive and start finding a piece of common ground to build on, because the only people who are getting hurt is our constituents. I cannot tell you the dozens and dozens of emails and conversations I get of what's wrong with your council, what's happening. Okay, I have to take part of the blame because I'm supposedly part of the leadership. I says that's why it's a council. But that division, we ought to try and find some common ground to build on. What's going right, build on it. Again, we can't shy away from something that's not right. Sometimes it's not what we say, it's how we say it. You know, and we've got other things going on that draw our attention. So I appreciate your patience. I appreciate your honesty. I know it's heartfelt. I respect each person's right to give us an opinion. We have to sometimes agree to disagree, and that's okay too. We're not going to agree 100%, and I respect that. Now tonight we're going to go through some action items. We'll come back around to the work session, and we'll talk about how much time we want to spend tonight. And I'm concerned we'll obviously not be able to spend enough time tonight, and how we want to proceed. So with that being said, I'm going to move to the action items, if you'll bear with me. We've reviewed those in the work session. The first item of business is consideration of Ordinance 343, amending the city's code of ordinances regarding trees and park strip landscaping. Mike, a 30-second introduction.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a ton to add. This has been discussed with the council and other city boards and committees. Over the course of many months, we've received a lot of input and good suggestions from these committees, and had opportunities for public comment. And I'm proud of the end result here. I think it's a good ordinance that will help us better regulate trees in public areas in the city. And kind of achieve some of the goals we have in that area. So I appreciate especially Matt Taylor's hard work in putting everything together and getting it to this point, and can answer any questions if you have any.
Okay, any questions regarding this new ordinance? I think it's outstanding, something we've talked about for a couple of years, so I appreciate making some progress in this area. Any comments, questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion.
Sorry, Mayor, what ordinance was it?
It's ordinance number 343.
I would move that we pass ordinance 343.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bruce. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Peterson. Any further discussion?
Just a big thank you to the staff. I know a lot of research went into this, and it really turned out fantastic.
Agreed. Okay.
I might also thank the constituent who brought this to our attention. I know she spent a lot of time and effort working with you, Mike, and your team, I believe. And it's great when a citizen brings an idea like this that comes to fruition. So I think that's a great kudos to you, Mike, and your counterparts.
Okay. Thank you. All right. I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Peterson.
Yes.
Councilmember Bracken.
Yes.
Councilmember Bruce.
Yes.
Councilmember Michael.
Yes.
And I will vote yes. The next item is Resolution 2020-31, approving entry into building services agreement with Sunrise Engineering. Mike Johnson, you want to introduce that quickly again?
Yes, very quickly. This is a renewal of the Sunrise Engineering contract. Sunrise provides building department services for the city. They have for numerous years. That includes plan review and building inspections and a building official to assist in those areas. The new contract does not propose any changes to the cost structure. It's structured around a percentage of building permit revenue that comes in. So it's very flexible given various economic conditions and building activity. We feel it's a good value contract, and Sunrise has always been very responsive and provided great service for us. So we recommend approval of this.
Any questions of Mike or further discussion?
Nope. Sunrise has been doing an excellent job for us for many years, and I would move that we approve Resolution 2020-31.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Bracken. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Peterson. Any further comments? Here, I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Michael,
Yes.
Councilmember Bruce,
Yes.
Councilmember Bracken,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. The next item is a resolution 2020-32. It's approving entry into an agreement with Salt Lake County for distribution of funding under the CARES Act. It's a little over $1 million. Tim, you want to introduce that quickly?
Yeah, we have the agreement. It was submitted to us by the county. We reviewed it. It allows for the spending of funds for federally defined projects. We've outlined just a tentative plan for that. It includes direct costs for supplies and items that we need to address COVID. It also has some cost allocations to some of the nonprofit organizations that we work with and districts. And then we would look at utilizing the bulk of it for small business administration grants to help bridge the gap with what they've been losing. We would work in conjunction so it wouldn't be a duplication of what the county's doing, but that's a big part of this. And then we'd look at other support options as we move along with this process. So we're excited to be able to have some of these funds to move forward and to address some of the impacts on businesses and other entities in our community due to COVID. We're recommending approval of that.
Any questions of Tim? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion on this matter.
I move that we approve 2020-32.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bruce and seconded by Councilmember Bracken. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, I'd call for the vote. Councilmember Bracken,
Yes.
Councilmember Bruce,
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. But I have to first ask for Councilmember Michael.
Yes.
Oh,
All right.
did you say yes?
Yes, I said yes.
All right. And I vote yes. All right. The next item is Resolution 2020-33, accepting a request for indemnification. Shane, I'll let you introduce that if you would, please.
The Utah Governmental Immunity Act provides that when a city officer or employee is sued for actions that may be within the course and scope of responsibility, the city is, or the governmental entity rather, is obligated to defend and indemnify that officer or employee. If the governmental entity chooses not to do that, there is a choice. Why then the officer employee can go out and hire counsel, and if it turns out that the defense and indemnity should have been granted, why then that officer employee has the right to seek that from the governmental entity. And I think we've all seen that, seen efforts along those lines occur. It was reported in the newspaper with some public officials over the last few years. In this case, a lawsuit was initiated by Chief Russo. One of the named defendants was Councilmember Bruce. Councilmember Bruce requested defense and indemnity from the city a few weeks ago, probably the better part of a month ago, and that was granted via a very similar resolution. to this resolution 2020-33 that's before you right now. The basis for this resolution, this resolution 2020-33, is that in her answer, Councilmember to the complaint, Councilmember Bruce also included a counterclaim against Chief Russo. The allegations in the counterclaim are essentially the same thing as allegations in a complaint. They could have formed the basis for an independent lawsuit by Councilmember Bruce against Chief Russo, but because of the context, they have been brought in as part of this pending lawsuit. So Chief Russo has made a written request to the City Council for defense and indemnity against the allegations in the counterclaim. And by statute, the City Council is required to make a decision on that request within 10 days after it's received. So that is the reason this is before you now. As we have discussed, it's throughout the city's history, officers and employees of the city have been sued as part of lawsuits against the city. They have always requested defense and indemnity, and it has always been granted with a reservation of rights, meaning that if it turns out that what they did that's being complained of in the complaint, or in this case in the counterclaim, was not within the course and scope of their official responsibilities for the city, by then they will have to answer to the city for that. Those decisions will typically be made by our insurer, who will be monitoring what is happening and be actually expending the funding for the defense and indemnity, and then alerting us if it appears that things are not as we think they might be, or think they might not be right now. Anyway, that's the explanation. I'm happy to respond to any further questions you may have on it.
No, I think we've been through it a couple of times, and as Councilor Bracken explained, we've done this for other employees in the past, and the important ingredient, I think, in this indemnification is the reservation of rights, that therefore, if people are acting in their capacity, then they should be indemnified. If it's outside that capacity, then the right to revoke that, I guess, is allowed. So, any further questions of Shane regarding this question, this consideration? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion for resolution 2020-33.
Move that we approve resolution 2020-33.
It's been moved by Councilmember Bracken. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Peterson. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Councilmember Michael?
Yes.
Councilmember Bruce?
Mayor, I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Councilmember Bracken?
Yes.
Councilmember Peterson?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Okay, the last action item actually is the consent calendar for approval of minutes. We have some corrections to make on those, so we will table that and bring it back at our next meeting. Therefore, I would now entertain a motion to adjourn, and in 10 minutes reconvene our work session just to determine how we want to proceed.
And move that we adjourn the business session and reconvene the work session in 10 minutes.
Have a second.
I'll second that, Mayor.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're adjourned till
Don't get
9:50.
lost, Lieutenant Bartlett.